This is our 2024 annual Washington State Purchase Card Forum. So again, thank you everybody for being here. My name is Michael Licks. We'll get into a little bit more about me in a minute, but I do want to cover some of the housekeeping items that we want to make sure that we cover. The forum is currently being recorded. If for any reason you're not interested in being recorded, I understand, feel free to leave the event at any time. The slides and the recording of the event, including the transcript, will all be available after the event. So if for any reason you are not interested in being recorded, again, feel free to leave at any time. Closed captions will be available. There's a little bit of a three-step function to work that out. I'll show the slide on how to do that in a minute if you're unfamiliar, but those are available to you. As you can see, we have our ASL interpreters here today, Aaron and Lori. They will be on screen the entire time to help provide that service, as well as the slides. So you won't see any of our presenters today. You'll just see Aaron and Lori and then the slides to the event. As you'll see, we are in webinar mode, so your microphones and cameras are disabled. So feel free to be comfortable and move around and just enjoy the content as you see fit. But if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I will try to answer them in real time if I'm able to, as well as our partners in the bank. Of course, there'll be question time for our presenters at the end of their presentations, so you can ask then. Any questions left unanswered in the chat at the end of the event, I will make sure that I will follow up on all of them and try to get them all answered for you. So just, if for whatever reason we don't get to all the questions, just know that I am recording them and I will get to them after the event. And then lastly, there is a survey. It's a quick 4-question survey, I think. I will put the link to the survey in the chat at the end of the event, as well as send it out afterwards with the slides. We really hope that you can take that survey. We really use it. The planning committee uses a lot of content from that survey to help inform this event for future years. So thank you so much for doing that. And again, thank you for being here. This is how you turn on the captions. So if you're unfamiliar with how to do that, there's 3 bubbles on your screen up there next to the app function. And then you'll see it says language and speech. You can click on that, and then you can turn on live captions. So if you would like to use the live captions, that is how you turn them on for your own individual purposes. And then again, this is me. My name is Michael Licks. I am the Enterprise Purchase Card Program Manager with the Department of Enterprise Services. And some of the things I get to do for you is help you all with your implementation of new programs. Of course, there's probably a lot less people here at this event that have a new program they would like to start. But if you know anybody around the state that isn't currently using our statewide P-card contract in our program, they are welcome to. That's something I can help with, and that's top to bottom. So any piece of that I'm willing to help with. Optimization, that's kind of more of what you guys would likely need from me, whether that be just policies and procedures and growth planning or anything that fits under that optimization umbrella. I can help you do that. And then of course support. Anything else you need, I'm here to help you. Once upon a time I helped run a P-card program, so I'm fully aware of most of the headaches that you all get to deal with, and I am always willing to listen and strategize and just kind of see what I can do to help you support your program. So that's me, and that's what I'm here to do. This is our agenda for the day. It's pretty packed. We're going to try to stay pretty close to it if we can. You'll see here, I'm already finishing up these remarks. Tracy Miner with US Bank is going to talk a little bit about Access Online technology, so that's going to be good. We have our friends at State Auditor's Office, Sadie Armijo and Carol Gross. They're going to talk to us about audit strategies as it relates to P-card, so I'm excited about that. We're going to get a break in there in the early part of the day so we can refill our coffee and take a bio break or whatever we need to do. We're going to get into our performance highlights with Shannon and Monica at US Bank. We're also going to hear about fraud trends and prevention from Heidi Bursa at US Bank. Then we'll get another break. We'll get to hear from Visa, so that's really good. We'll get to get a perspective from the merchant processor. And then we have a really cool segment this year that's a card program best practices, and that's going to be led by 3 individuals from 3 different government sectors. So we have Lori Adams with Tacoma Public Schools, Julie Shin with King County, and then Lance Yao at LNI. So they're going to talk to us about some of their best practices and how it relates to their individual programs. And then we'll wrap this thing up. So we'll just take 4 hours of your day today, and I appreciate all of you for being here and getting to absorb this great content. So let's just get this thing going. Go ahead, Tracy, I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you. Good morning. Are you seeing my screen? I know I took control.
Yes.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Oh, I see there's a question. If there are any questions along the way, if you can use our chat box and we can assist in any commentary or questions to assist along the way. Good morning again. Sorry, Tracy Miner, US Bank. I'm a solutions engineer. I work with our customers and prospects to help define any technology integration and solution needs. This morning, I'm going to give you some overview and tips and tricks of Access Online. I recognize some of you may be in your role for quite a few years. Others of you may be newer to the role. So some of this information may be a refresher. So moving right into Access Online as a high-level overview, I have some content of value adds that I'd like to share with you all before jumping right into the demo. Access Online consists of the 5 core functional areas that you see in front of you. So recognizing every participant on the call today may be using the system different. Whether you're an administrative role and you have account setup and maintenance, whether your organization may be using Access Online for card transaction management. We also host a virtual pay solution within Access Online for our customers that are using the availability of virtual cards. That's converting your check or ACH spend over to a virtual credit card. Over 65 reports, as well as an ad hoc reporting tool and data analytics, and I'll get into a deeper dive of that content. And then lastly, financial extracts and APIs. How are we getting that data out of Access Online and back to your ERP or expense management system or for reporting content for oversight? Paired along with the browser is a mobile app. Recognizing not everyone will have a use case to use the mobile app, but again, we want you all to be familiar with what options are available for your cardholders and as well as for yourselves as card administrators. From a cardholder point of view, we designed this app in 2014 to assist your cardholders who are on the go. Whether you're wanting to view your availability, view your last 90 days of transactions, initiate a dispute, view or download a monthly statement. If you're using our system for transaction management and you do receipt attachment, you can attach a receipt from the mobile app. For individually billed corporate credit cards, you have a pay bill feature online that does not display for corporate billed credit card accounts. And then from a program administrator's point of view, again, recognizing if you're not familiar with the app, this may be newer to you, but we actually rolled out the Program Administrator app in 2018. It's the same app that can be found in both Apple and Google. But your user credentials define what you can see and do within the system. Either you're a card holder or you're a program administrator. As a program administrator, you can view declines, adjust credit limits, account status changes, all in real time. So I liken this to the story of, we recognize you're not always sitting at your desk or walking around logged into your laptop 24/7. With that said, whether you're at a family dinner on Thursday night or you're at your child's soccer ball tournament on Saturday afternoon, from the mobile app, you can view declines and make adjustments to credit limits or account statuses. So ease of convenience when you get that text message or email or phone call of urgency from the mobile app, you can view that information and make adjustments as needed. Next, I wanted to cover at a high level the account alerts that are options for your cardholders to opt in via email and or text message. The example displayed in front of you is our most used alert, which is the fraud alert, where U.S. Bank suspects suspicious activity. The example in front of you just calls out that U.S. Bank has identified the merchant name, the dollar amount, and the date on which it happened. And in real time, if your cardholders have opted in, they receive that communication and can respond back stating that that transaction is in fact fraudulent or if it is valid, and then based on response, proceeding steps to follow. So real-time communication to access and ease the use of your card at various points. In the center column, you see a variety of event alerts, those that we are used to, much like in our consumer credit card world. Notify me if my credit limit changed, if my address changed. And then on the far right, a variety of purchase alerts. Again, customizable, and I'll show you what this looks like when I log into my test data to play around in, but your cardholders can personalize their use cases if they're looking for a transaction to happen and they want to know when that card authorization has happened. Next, I wanted to confirm for you all that all of our card products have the availability to be added to a mobile wallet. So whether it's Apple Pay, Google Pay, Samsung, Fitbit, or Garmin Pay, all of the features across the bottom of the page, you can add your card products to the mobile wallet for ease of use and convenience. This is also the most secure payment method available in the industry. So even as consumer credit card holders or check card holders, adding your card to your mobile wallet, when you actually put your phone up to the point of sale terminal, it's passing a tokenized value set, not your real credit card number. So the merchant's actually never getting that real credit card number. And that's where we say it's the most secure method, is there's low risk in potential fraud because the value is never being captured and passing through the network. It's a tokenized value set. So knows that there is an ease of use or convenience of having it on your phone, but reduce risk and fraud exposure. Next, I want to talk about our payment analytics compliance tool. This is used for misuse and abuse of your travel and procurement policies. So it sits within Access Online and it allows you to enable policy rules to say, if this, then notify me. So it's post-transaction authorization. It's happening upon the transaction posting to the system. If a rule is triggered each night as new transactions post, it would then send a notification and create an event within our system for you as administrators to have oversight and review of what's happening. And even from a compliance or audit perspective, your audit department's having access to create rules to be notified if something is happening versus having to run a report looking for details on a specific transaction. It could notify you that an occurrence has happened the morning after the transaction posts. Some sample rule templates include a variety that I've listed here. On the left side of the screen are more procurement-based reconciliation rules. whether you're watching for a specific type of merchant name. I'll even give you the example of Home Depot versus Lowe's. Excuse me. If Home Depot is your, excuse me, if Home Depot is your preferred vendor, you could create a rule to say, notify me anytime Lowe's is purchased with someone. So that next morning you would come into work to an email notification alerting you that John Doe, the cardholder, has made a purchase with Lowe's. You can then track that event within the system, add commentary, route it if someone else needs to know, justification, disposition, and it's there as a reference in reporting. Split purchase or transaction, if someone is trying to circumvent that single purchase limit or their SPL, it may be a valid use case. But if you do have a specific use of needing to see if someone is circumventing those single purchase limits, our system will bring back the two transactions that look like it could be a split transaction purchase. And then you could have the availability of following up. And again, it may be valid. Maybe John went to Lowe's and he bought a widget and he came back and they said, well, John, why didn't you buy two? We needed two of them. So John went back to Lowe's and bought the second one on the same day. Comes back as two transactions under that single purchase limit. Maybe someone thinks he may be trying to circumvent that single purchase limit. Again, just an example. I do show we have a question. We only have 2 employees with district cell phones. Is it considered safe, secure for other district employee credit card holders to have their district credit card on their own personal cell phone? I'm going to actually defer that back to your compliance, as I don't want to define your own rules, but that is available to be added to your mobile wallet. And if a card is, I'll call this out, you can define your own policies, but if a card is terminated or closed, it then gets removed from a mobile wallet. And that even happens with your own credit cards. Personal credit cards. If a card is closed, it is then removed from a mobile wallet because there is validation happening behind the scenes. I'm going to pivot to the left or to the right side of the screen, excuse me. These are more travel-based reconciliation or policy rules. Notify me if someone booked a first-class airline ticket. There may be a reason or justification. But if you need to be notified, if and when someone did, it would notify you the morning after that transaction posted that transaction has been booked in first-class airline ticket or a ticket purchased in someone other than the cardholder's name. Hotel room, notify me anytime someone's nightly hotel rate exceeds, I'm just going to make up a dollar value, $253. Again, it's not preventing that transaction from posting. It's just notifying you that it occurred based on your travel and procurement policies. There's currently over 30 customizable templates with this solution. However, we are actually going to be transitioning into a new system that we are designing to replace this that will allow you to customize your tools versus only, customize your business policy rules versus only selecting from a defined template list. And that is due to be rolled out next year, early in the first quarter. I'm going to do a deeper dive of the data analytics tool within the demo environment, but I wanted to give you some visualization charts within the slide content, just so you can understand or recall what we discussed. Data analytics was deployed in 2018, giving you interactive tool access to your spend information, to your delinquency management, and this is specific to individually billed corporate credit cards. So if you don't have an individually billed corporate credit card, this tile will show blank, and I'll actually show you that within my system. But if you do have an individually billed corporate credit card program, it allows you to hover over delinquencies by dollar amounts or by number of days past due for your various card holders. And when you hover over the circle, this window pops up. It shows your specific delinquency statuses by the number of days past due. And then it allows you to click on this email address if we pretend this was the cardholder's email address. And it opens in Outlook, in this case, your default email system and pre-populates this information, allowing you to send a real-time communication to your cardholder right from this data analytics tool. Lastly, decline trends. Again, this being an option of, although you can view declines in real time, run reports on declines in real time, this allows you to look at the information from a different viewpoint. And I'll get into details on this a little bit more, but I'll steer your attention to this last tile. Number of declines by unapproved merchant categories per month. This example gives you the declines that are happening with unapproved merchants. Your MCCs are working, but how often do you stop and look at why someone's being declined based on unapproved merchants? Typically, we are reactive to declines. I'm being declined for a reason, and I need this purchase to go through. I had a state customer use this specific tile, and in reviewing their data with them, we found an employee on a purchasing card program declined 17 times for liquor store. Liquor store was never an approved vendor. The cardholder never complained. Well, one, because they didn't have a use case to be purchasing liquor on their purchasing card. But they were trying 17 times over a 3-month time period. So this gave the information to the state to go to that cardholder to do further research and oversight on their card program. So a different view of the same data that you have today. Data integration. This is just to reconfirm. There's a lot of information here. I'm not going to cover it all, but this is just to reconfirm for you that we have experience with integrating with over 65 ERPs and expense management solutions, and that we have the availability to direct issue industry financial extracts for Visa and MasterCard files, depending on your format need, as well as the availability of customized formats. And then lastly, I want to talk APIs. API stands for Application Programming Interface. This is real-time system-to-system communication. You could think I send you a text and you immediately reply back to that text. Real-time communication. Within the system, we offer the availability of sending real-time system changes, whether it's a virtual payment, account setup and maintenance, transactions, corporate statements, or even for those of you who may be familiar with our instant card solution, the availability of creating your own use case. I'd like to steer your attention to the account setup and maintenance, the corporate credit card APIs here. Today, you may log in and set up a new account within the system. You may terminate an employee account within the system or close it, change a credit limit, update an MCC value. With corporate credit card APIs, it can send real-time change requests to Access Online from your HR system. So let's use the example of the account status change, where you may need to close an account. Let's say you have an employee that's been terminated. Today, someone logs into the HR system and marks the employee as terminated. That information needs to get translated to the card administrator, who then in turn needs to log into Access Online and terminate the account. With the API, when someone logs into your HR system and terminates the employee, it sends a real-time API call to Access Online to terminate that account. And I just snap my fingers immediately. So real-time system-to-system communication, adding ease of convenience, adding reduced risk of outstanding exposure to an opened account in that scenario. Additionally, I'll call out that even account setups can be done in this use case. Recognizing you have a new employee who needs a purchasing card or a travel card or a one card, your HR system already has the applicable data set. And you could have it coded to say, new employee John Doe needs a new card set up, and the system can grab that details and send it to Access Online in a real-time API call for setup and to help define access to the system and setting up new accounts and maintaining them as needed. And my apologies, right now, the timing is just wonderful. My VPN is about to log me out. It just warned me. So I'm going to pause for just a second and reconnect with my VPN. I should be staying engaged, but just in case I flutter out, I just wanted you to be aware of that. So bear with me one moment. That was my last slide. So from here, I'm also going to pivot over into my demo environment. Sorry, I'm just logging back into my VPN. And I just want to make sure I'm still connected to you all. Can I get a thumbs up if I'm still connected? Thank you. I appreciate it, Erin. Okay, so moving forward with my demo site. I'm here, I'm active on the screen. Again, your user permissions are going to define what you can see and do within the system. I'm going to be logging into some test information. So although it may have a real cardholder name, some of the information applicable or associated to some of the content is just test information in place of a real or agency or a city name on an account. Same with the transaction data set. It's mocked up transactional information. So if you can just put on your pretend hats with me and pretend we're looking at real transaction information. As you know, we do have multi-factor authentication upon logging into the system. Additionally, we do offer the availability of single sign-on. So if there is ever an inquiry or want to have our system automatically log you in from your network, we can work with you to have that process set up. So again, right now I'm logged in as a program administrator. I can also, based on time, log in as a card holder to give you a look and view of what card holders see if they were to log into the system. From my program administrator hat, I have 4 different billing accounts associated to my user access. And I can switch between these accounts and toggle, and the screen will refresh. I'm currently looking at a corporate card, and it's giving me a high-level overview of my managing account, the available, the used, and the pending. And then if needed, depending on how you may be making a payment to US Bank, we have the capability of you doing a same-day payment from your managing account to our system. I will call out from this pay account feature, if payments are submitted by 4 p.m. Central Time, that payment will post that night. This being different than an ACH payment that takes 24 to 48 hours to post. So I just want to call that out for those participants under the state contract that may be needing to make payment more quickly or through the system other than ACH payment. You'll also just see the widget. So we call this a widget, and we call this account highlights decline transaction a widget. These widgets are going to be added as we build out additional content to our landing page or our dashboard. But you'll be able to view all declines for your specific billing account. So again, I'm sitting underneath this managing account. I will see the respectful declines of this managing account. When I click on the view all, I had 4 in the last 5 days, and you can see the cardholder information, the date and time, the merchant name, the dollar amount, and the reason. By stepping on this caret, it deploys more information. You can see more information around the decline reason, the dollar amount, the merchant city, the MCC code, so you can better understand. So real-time information, and this is updated in real time. If a decline just happened, you could log in and pick from it from the list, or you could run a report. I'm going to go back to the dashboard. I know many of you who have been with us for a long time are new. In August, we released, excuse me, the dashboard to the top of the page. Previously, it was on the left side of the screen. So that's part of our new look and feel. We will continue to update all of the old legacy screens, this older format, but we'll continue in this state until the new design is laid out and all of the pages are connected. From an account setup and maintenance point of view, some features I would like to call out are obviously you can set up a new account real time within the system. I also want to call out the account shared or account templates option. This allows you to build out different type of user profiles or roles and set attributes with that role. And then you can apply it to an application and it reduces your input, when creating a new account. So whether you have various types of purchasing card users with different credit limits, different MCCs, different organizational hierarchy, default accounting codes, or different types of corporate or one card, heavy traveler, standard traveler, global traveler. Different attributes could be associated to each of these profiles or templates, and you can apply it to the application, reducing your input time. So I've created one within my demo environment that I'll show you here under corporate card, and then I'll also step into maintaining new accounts as well. So where we have new design features deployed, pop-up messages will be showing just to remind you of new features and selection. Your user permissions define what products or organizational information you have access to. I'm going to set up a corporate card through this process. This is where if you have different types of templates, you can assign those templates and your application will then take on those attributes. You can still make edits if you want something different than what the template deployed. But again, you personalize the name and the associated value sets when you create up the templates, and then you can select them from the pick list. So again, if any of these features you're not seeing today, you can reach out to Shannon and Monica or your account coordinator at the bank to have the account templates enabled for your program. Heavy travel, no cash, purchase only, office supplies. I just renamed them and applied some data sets. You could apply a default line of accounting. Any of the fields that are available in the application process can be defaulted, with still allowing you the availability of changing or editing something different than what the template stated. So I do want to then move into account maintenance to pull up an existing account and then have the availability of looking up an existing account and showing you some real-time maintenance features. So let me select Deb William. So here's Deb Williams' purchasing card. Wherever you see the edit pencil allows you to edit the system in real time. Of course, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the availability of account status change, as I mentioned earlier with the API. You can voluntarily close an account or terminate an employee account. But I also want to call out, again, the use of the feature called Show Optional Settings, where we have effective dating controls. So although Deb is going to go on short-term disability, I could mark her account voluntary and select a future date. Let's say she goes on short-term disability on November 13th. I then know she's also coming back exactly 2 weeks later, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And I can hit submit today on this October 24th, and the system will automatically voluntarily close her account on November 13th and then reopen her account on November 27th on my behalf. All of this will be available in reporting and having access to information as needed to any of the changes that may have been made. This effective maintenance dating control also applies to every field in the cardholder profile. Credit limits, I can change it to coincide with a billing cycle or cycles. I can do an address change in real time, or you can have your HR system send us an address change in the API if needed, or default line of accounting. And then last but not least, all the variety of velocity limits if needed, and the MCC controls. So those of you who are familiar for MCC maintenance, we've added all the individual MCC templates, as well as the MCC grouping templates, all the airlines, all the hotels as their own templates. And then we've also worked with you to create any custom templates. Those are all available for you to search and select. And if you're not sure what you're looking for, you can type in a wildcard search and the system will bring back the respective MCC templates available based on your search. You can select that value and then tell the system how you want it to behave or react. We also have the availability of setting temporary credit limit MCC change or temporary MCC changes. I have a real life scenario where I had a customer who needed jewelry stores enabled temporarily because the vendor was coming up as a jewelry store and they were actually getting some plaques engraved. They went to the cardholder account, searched for the MCC for jewelry, created a start and end date window, gave their employee 4 business days to get that authorization through. The system added the template and then removed the template on their behalf. So again, adding the availability of ease of convenience to an account. There was a question by Bruce, how do I mass add a custom template to all cards? Bruce, you all can manage MCCs. I'm thinking you're talking MCCs. I may be wrong. Can you clarify me, Bruce? Are you referring to MCC templates? Thank you. You can do individual cardholder level controls yourself. If you need something done to apply to all cardholders, you would want that set at the managing account. From a managing account perspective, you would need to work with your account coordinator, your day-to-day service contact, to have that set at the managing account level. None of our customers can set those controls at the managing account level, but we can set those up for you and manage that for you. You're very welcome. All right, I'm going to pivot into reporting quickly here, and because I also want to show you what a cardholder's look and feel is like. So our reports haven't changed that much. We've added one new report in the last year, and I'll show you that look and feel. But whether you're looking to manage your card program, card utilization, cash advances, declining balance, or an account list that gives you everything from A to Z on a cardholder profile. Account status change, that temporary MCC or temporary credit limit or temporary account status change, we call that account maintenance effective dating. We have a report right here, so you can run a report to see which one of your requests are in process or pending that timeline. Decline transactions, our old tried and true transaction real-time authorization report. That still stands. And then I also want to call out account history request status queue. This is a report that can be ran to see who changed that credit limit, who set up that account, who closed the account. All user IDs, date and time stamps are available on account history changes. So if from an audit perspective and oversight, you can track that information as well. Under the financial management section, are transaction related reports. So whether you are managing your virtual payments, your order management, your transaction management, you can have the availability of running any of these reports in real time. Our newest report is right here called Real-Time Authorizations. And this gives you real-time access to not just declines like that decline transaction report, but it also gives you approvals and those that have been reversed. So you can have an oversight and a true understanding in real time to all authorizations from a report perspective versus looking at it at a cardholder level. This is also giving you the new look and feel of our new reports. So again, in the background, my development team is working on updating all user reports to be more intuitive and design layout. So you choose your start and end dates of when you're looking at authorizations. You can say, I only want those that are approved or declined, or maybe just those that are declined, or you can select all and it automatically checks them all. You can run this report at a cardholder account level or at a processing hierarchy. So you're managing billing hierarchy or bank agent, company, division, or department value sets. And this is also the new search and select options of our hierarchy options. It's only going to give you the list of values that you can select from. If I select my purchasing card hierarchy, I can then see what billing account I want to select from versus having to go into that link to go into the new search and select and refine and accept and come back. So we're creating a better experience for you to get to your hierarchy details versus having you to go to multiple pages to get to the information. So this type of experience of searching and selecting your hierarchy options, depending on what products you may be selecting, these features are going to be rolling out across the system as we're completing those page updates to create a better experience. And then again, you can run this report in real time, click download. This report just has an Excel output. And in real time, you can see all the declines based on the date ranges that we set. My apologies, I meant to zoom in. So here's the card holders, their account statuses, the date and time, what happened, the reason, and a lot of information that's all being captured at the point of authorization on the merchant, the details, the managing account availability, all the back-end system authorization data set that's available, and also cardholder profile, recognizing you may see someone declined. And from this report, you can already identify their current credit limit and then why it was declined based on not enough available, if that were the reason. So real-time access to that info. I want to quickly jump back and just high-level reports, supplier management, spend analysis, travel, airline, hotel, a variety of reports, all at your fingertips, as well as an ad hoc reporting tool that lets you define and design your own output. You may think, that's great, Tracy. The transaction detail report gives me 150 data elements. I only want 10. You can define and design your own report by selecting your data elements that your primary objects, transactions, and allocations. And then we bring back all the transaction and allocation fields. And if you want it included, you check the box. If you don't know how to, or you don't like the name of a report, you can rename it. And then you can also schedule these reports or run them on demand to get your output. And then data analytics. Data analytics is an add-on functional entitlement group. If your user ID does not have data analytics today, then it does not even display in your navigation bar. So again, if you don't see this option under reporting, that means you don't have it today. And if you need it or want it, you can work with your account coordinator, or you can contact Shannon or Monica and ask them to have it enabled for your organization and respectful people that should have that access. So again, interactive on your spend trends, spend volumes by merchant, average purchases. Here's that delinquency management example that I spoke a little bit more in depth to from the presentation. This customer's profile does not have any individually billed corporate card programs, so the tile is blank. So again, it only displays if you have that type of card product. And then the decline trends. Sliding rule scales on how many months you'd like to review of declines and the volume or types of decline reasons, and the system adjusts based on the time and date. You can hover over the information and see what accounts are declined for what reason code or the timeline. And you can also then step into decline totals. And decline totals will give you a different view of your declines. And again, having the availability of seeing this content. You can step into view detail, and view detail will take a deeper dive on the views of declines. My page has to refresh here. I will call out on each of the pages for the various data analytics. There's just little training videos on specifically declined authorizations or decline trends. And of course, I think I stepped on something that didn't want to load because it should not take this long at all. I promise I think I stepped on something that didn't like the page or I had stepped into something and now the system's saying, I don't know how to get to that detail. So let's let this load. I will also call out, this page you have to be on it for the data set to load. Unfortunately, you can't just automatically click on it and wait for it to load in the background. So it does come. So if I go into view details here, you can do a deeper dive of the data set. Here we go. And the information's loading. Let me make my screen a little bit smaller so you can see all the content. So I have a total of 60 declines with the various reasons. When you hover over something, when you step into it, it actually gives you the cardholder name and their number of reasons of times they were declined. Additionally, this is where the unapproved MCC screen would show. I just don't have that data set within my system right here, so it's not showing that information. That was where I gave you the real life scenario of another state having 17 declines for trying to purchase liquor. So real-time information and access to this information at your fingertips with training modules available, video training. When you click on the watch the video training, from this page, it gives you a data analytic overview and detailed training video on how to walk through each of these different data sets. I am going to also quickly call out our training WBT, web-based training, where again, depending on what your needs are, I'm going to step on data analytics. We have a user guide. We also have the videos for training as mentioned. Let's say we wanted flex data reports. We have lessons that you can step through, a quick reference guide, a certification, user guides, and again, recorded classes. As administrators, you do have access to our Access Online webinars. These are not for cardholders, specifically program administrators, but the availability to register for a webinar. These are shared with other customers, but if you see a monthly topic you would like to attend, you can do so and register and attend. We take these recorded courses and then add them where applicable back into our training documentation and information, if referenced or needed under any of the data set in the training communications. So I'm going to quickly log in as a card holder. For those who haven't seen what a cardholder's view is. I also want to call out that the cardholders do have a different look and feel of the transaction management area than the program administrators, or they could have a different view. This is where we're moving into our transaction view area. I'll give a quick glance into what's coming down the road. And right now, this is only going to be available for our customers who are not using our system for allocation or approval. We are still building out the allocation and the approval process into this new look and feel. And so until that's ready, we're not deploying it to every customer. It's on a case-by-case basis. And also this new look and feel right now is for transactions is only for cardholders. If you're a program administrator or an approval manager, you're still going to see the old legacy view. Today, for new transactions that are posting, you can see transaction information. Again, click on the caret and you can see more information on that transaction, or possibly view additional details from a drawer that pops out for that transaction and see additional information. So you see we have an approval history started, but we haven't built it out completely yet, so it's not available for use. So new information is coming. You'll also see that cardholders will be able to see pending authorizations, transactions that have been authorized but have not yet been posted. And also they can view their own declines. So your cardholders can see the same view that you have to self-service themselves from the browser. I know I've given you a wide variety of information. I think there's one or two questions. Let's see. Is it possible to see if users are logging into their accounts and like the usage frequency? Yes. Nathan, under administration reporting, there is a user list report that can give you the last time they logged in. Unfortunately, it doesn't do an ongoing usage frequency, but it does tell you the last time they logged in. Laura, where can I find basic information on purchasing cards? We are considered using them, but we need more info to make our decision. And you just got answered with some information. Thanks, Michael, for adding that. Can I unlock a card user or do they have to contact the bank? If it is unlocking their user ID, you can, but cardholders can also fix it themselves. I'm going to open up a quick screen here and actually show you my demo login page because I have some built-in information. Let's say I've locked myself out or I forgot my password and I'm a cardholder. I can click on forgot my password and our system will ask them to fill in information. Of course, my demo site is making me do this. Let me see if I can figure it out. It then will ask me my authentication questions. And sorry, I have to look in quickly to see what my authentication question is for my demo. And then it's going to send me a one-time passcode email. So this is how we have the availability of knowing that you're the true card holder, and because we're sending you a one-time passcode to your email associated to your card account. So that availability of information will come through. And I am going to pop open. I just got this email because on my dummy test data, I have this information available that just came through to me just now. And I can complete that process of updating my password and unlocking myself. But you also can assist a cardholder under system administration unlock, or excuse me, card administration unlock, if you'd like. I realize I've come to the end of my time. I appreciate your comments and your questions, and I hope you enjoyed my overview.
Thanks, Tracy.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate that. That was a wonderful amount of information for everybody. Just to recap real quick, specifically about data analytics, if that's interesting to you and you want to have that enabled for your program, please reach out to your dedicated relationship manager. They can help enable that for you. And if you're unsure of who that is, please feel free to send me an email. We'll figure out who it is. Next up, we have Sadie Armijo and Carol Gross from our state auditor's office. So they're going to talk to us a little bit about audit strategies. So this should be really helpful for everybody here. I appreciate them being here for this. So go ahead and take it away, Sadie and Carol.
All right, good morning. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. We got the thumbs up. Okay, so my name is Carol Gross and I am the audit manager for Team Financial Audit. And I'll be covering the first part of the presentation and then passing it off to Sadie Armijo, who is the Director of State Audit and Special Investigations. Some common audit exceptions, best practice recommendations to mitigate risk at every level of your government. We're also going to talk about some real life credit card investigations and some controls to prevent it. And then we're going to offer you some SAO resources to help you with your P-card programs. So, surprise, SAO is performing an accountability audit at your government. I know those are your favorite words to hear. The auditor informs you that they've selected purchase cards as one of the audit areas they'd like to review. So when we talk about purchase cards, we might use the word credit cards. That also includes one cards and travel cards. My team is part of the state division at SAO, which means we perform audits of state agencies. Agencies participate in the state's credit card program, which is administered by DES. Much of what we will be speaking about today is going to be directly related to our work with state agencies, but all best practice recommendations would be applicable to any type of government. So what is the auditor looking for? Well, to understand what we're looking for, you need to understand what the purpose of an accountability audit is. Accountability audits focus on compliance with laws, regulations, and the entity's own policies and procedures. A large focus is to determine if public assets are safeguarded against misuse or abuse. It's also important to know that accountability audits use a risk-based approach in planning. This means the auditor will do some data analysis, gain an understanding of your operations and control environment, and speak with pertinent staff to determine areas to examine that the auditor perceives to be at the highest risk for loss, non-compliance, or misappropriation. So once your auditor has determined to take a closer look at your government's credit card activity, every auditor will use the same basic equation. So first, they're going to want to understand applicable criteria. What are examples of criteria? So that would be state law, policies, agency procedure manuals. This can also be best practice recommendations that would address the risk of safeguarding assets. Next, they're going to want to understand your government processes. We will meet with you, ask you questions about how the cards are issued, how they're tracked and monitored, how our purchases are reviewed and reconciled. Then next, we're going to measure your processes against applicable criteria. This is where we will try and determine if your processes, which is what is actually happening, complies with what should be happening according to policies and state law. This usually involves selecting specific transactions to review, including purchase requests and approvals, receipts or invoices, receiving slips, travel vouchers, conference registrations, etc., etc. Finally, the auditor is going to come to a conclusion, which could include communication of audit exceptions or issues if applicable. So if in our review of specific transactions or in our conversations with you, we find discrepancies between what is happening and what should be happening, we document it as an exception or audit issue. And these can have different reporting levels in our audit report, depending on the significance of the issue. So that equation sounds quite simple, but we all know it can become very complex. When you involve different people making different types of purchases under different levels of oversight, things can get complicated. So what are some applicable criteria for the use of U.S. bank credit cards by Washington state agencies? Well, there are many potential sources of criteria, too many to list on one slide, but these are a starting point for what SAO would be referencing. So now that we know what types of criteria SAO typically references, we can begin to talk about common audit exceptions. So in no particular order, if you can move to the next slide, please. Thank you. These are the top 10 frequent flyers, audit issues that we have given to state agencies during our accountability audits. And again, in no particular order. Number one, card user agreements are not completed, retained, or updated every 2 years. Number two, purchasing trainings are not completed or not tracked. Number three, reconciliations are not performed to review transactions for appropriateness. Number four, credit cards are not safeguarded. Number five, entity does not utilize a log to track the chain of custody of shared cards. Number six, approvals are not maintained to support that purchases were for legitimate business purposes. Seven, the wrong card is used for the wrong purpose, like a corporate travel card is used for purchases that are not travel related. Number eight, corporate travel cards are not centrally monitored or reconciled. And number nine, purchases are personal in nature. And number 10, receipts are not maintained. So let's go into these in a little more detail and then give you some best practice recommendations. So for number one, card user agreements are not completed, not retained, or not updated every 2 years. This really starts with knowing the applicable criteria. Card user agreements are discussed in the DES Enterprise Commercial Card Policy. It says that card users must understand and agree to comply with policies and procedures. The form must be signed prior to issuance and use of the card. Agencies are encouraged to review and update agreements frequently, but no less than once every 2 years. Utilizing a standard form and establishing a process for tracking, retaining, and updating the forms at least every 2 years will make the process easier and more consistent. Your purchase card administrator is a great person to be responsible for owning this process. For each of these issues and best practice recommendations, I'm going to speak about the risk, essentially why the auditor actually cares about this and why you should too. So what's the risk? Aside from non-compliance with policy, neglecting to establish this process can increase the risk that there may be card users who are not familiar with policies and procedures on how to use the card. Policies change over time. And if your card user signed this form, say 15 years ago, and it has never been updated, they may not be aware of new requirements. With staff turnover, the agency also may be unaware of who has read the policies and who has not. Updating the forms is a great way for the agency to revisit this information. For an auditor, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. Retaining documents according to your government's record retention schedule will allow you to provide evidence to the auditor that you have complied with this policy. Number two, purchasing trainings are not completed or not tracked. So RCW 39.26.110 authorizes DES to provide training on best practices for state procurement. This law also prohibits employees from making purchases on behalf of the state without taking procurement trainings. There are a number of contract and procurement trainings available from the Washington State Learning Center. So agencies should be able to provide evidence to the auditor that card users have taken the required trainings before making purchases on behalf of the state. So what's the risk here? Well, purchasers could be unfamiliar with purchasing requirements and best practices. And agencies could be unaware of who has and who has not taken the trainings and has difficulty enforcing this requirement when it is not monitored and tracked. Number 3, reconciliations are not performed to review transactions for appropriateness. Someone separate from the purchaser should be responsible for reviewing purchases to make sure they are appropriate. At a basic level, this would include comparing source documents such as receipts or invoices to the credit card statement. So what's the risk here? Well, without this review by a secondary individual, purchasers can easily use state credit to make personal purchases and misappropriate state funds. Electronic documents can be easily altered, so reconcilers should be on high alert for supporting documents that look suspicious or inconsistent with expectations. Number 4 and 5, so credit cards are not safeguarded and the entity does not utilize a log to track the chain of custody of shared cards. Credit cards can be easily stolen. They're a valuable asset that agencies should store in a secure location. A locked cabinet is an ideal location, and agencies should limit the number of people who have access to the cabinet. Your government should always be able to trace the usage of the credit card to a specific individual. In the case of shared departmental cards, the DES Enterprise Commercial Card Policy requires that a log be utilized to document who is checking out the card and who is checking it back in and when. This will allow the agency to ensure only authorized purchasers are using the card, and if questionable purchases occur, there will be a documented chain of custody to help investigate. Number 6, approvals are not maintained to support that purchases were for legitimate business purposes. Many entities get in the habit of giving verbal approvals for purchases. This is especially true when the business unit is small. Unfortunately, auditors need that documentation to validate that something happened. Approvals for purchases should be documented, whether on a standardized form or even through email, and retained according to retention schedules. Without documented approvals, it can be challenging to prove to the auditor that a purchase was necessary for business purposes. SAM 85.3230 also requires that at a minimum, payment processing documentation for goods and services expenditures should include evidence of authorization for purchase, receipt of goods or services, and approval for payment. For example, if a purchase is made for a hotel in another state for an employee to attend a conference, but the agency has not retained documents, such as the employee's conference registration and approval for that employee to travel, it can be impossible for an agency to prove to the auditor at a later date that the hotel stay was for business and not personal reasons. Number 7 and 8, so the wrong card is used for the wrong purpose, or corporate travel cards are not centrally monitored or reconciled. Sometimes users treat cards interchangeably. Their work purchase card, one card, corporate travel card, their personal credit card. But as we all know, these cards are not all the same. They have different parameters and are to be used for different situations. The DES Enterprise Commercial Card Policy states corporate travel cards are to be used only for travel purchases, and the employee must submit for reimbursement from their agency. Because these corporate travel cards are often an individual liability, and often the credit card statement is sent directly to the employee, many agencies have not been reviewing the activity on these cards at all, as long as the balance is paid off every month. However, these corporate travel cards are part of the state's credit card system. They are using state credit, and agencies are responsible to ensure users are using the cards appropriately and in compliance with applicable policies. So what's the risk? We've seen many instances where corporate travel cards were used to make personal and non-travel related purchases. Without central monitoring or reconciliation, the risk of card misuse increases. Number 9, purchases are personal in nature and receipts are not maintained. So if we haven't said it enough already, documentation is so important to support that purchases are appropriate. Many audit exceptions stem simply from a lack of documentation. It can be difficult to think into the future, but imagine an auditor is reviewing purchases that were made at your agency 4 years ago. In those 4 years, the person who made the purchase or approved the purchase could no longer be at the agency. That means someone else will need to try and prove to the auditor that the purchase complied with agency policies and state law. Some purchases are especially prone to skepticism from the auditor, like purchases to PayPal or to large online retailers like Amazon, or locations such as bars or casinos. These purchases could very well be legitimate, but they could also be a misappropriate use of state funds. The only way to tell the difference is to start with source documentation, like a receipt. Receipts give a lot of information that reconcilers can use to verify the purchase. Information like the date, time of purchase, location, the price. Was the purchase made on a weekend or when the employee was not expected to be working? Is the purchase consistent with their normal business duties? Did they purchase 5 items, 4 of which were business related and 1 that was maybe not? So what's at risk here? SAM 85.32.10 states that agencies are to establish and implement procedures following generally accepted accounting principles, and at a minimum, to implement controls to ensure that all expenditures or expenses and disbursements are for lawful and proper purposes and recorded in a timely manner. A receipt will definitely help you do this. So now that we've covered some frequent flyer audit exceptions and some of our best practice recommendations, I'll turn it over to the Director of State Audit and Special Investigations, Sadie Armijo, to discuss SAO's fraud investigation program and go through some recent real-life case examples of credit card investigations.
Good morning, everyone. I'm hoping you can hear me. Do I get a thumbs up if we're hearing me? All right. All right. Thank you, Carol, for sharing our best practices. And unfortunately, what I get to talk about is some of the uglier side of what can happen when your credit cards are misused. I want to talk just real briefly about the fraud investigation program. Washington state law 4309-185 requires all state agencies and local governments to immediately notify our office of a known or suspected loss of resources or other illegal activity, and that can even include cyber attacks as well. So on our website, I'm not going to go there, but you can get there with that QR code. Gets to a lot of information about what to do and also our policies around what you need to report. But I think one of the most important things we want to make sure of is that you make sure if you are suspecting a loss of funds that you're protecting any of the accounting records. You want to notify those in your agency who need to know, but obviously maybe not the person who you're suspecting. You want to notify your legal counsel as well. And also you want to consult with the state auditor's office before you file a police report. We usually work pretty closely with them in these situations. The other thing I want to just be really clear about is oftentimes maybe if someone's in the process of leaving or you're letting them go, agencies will enter into a restitution agreement. Those restitution agreements do need to be approved by our office if there is an assumption that there was a loss involved. We just work with you on those restitution agreements to make sure any further losses that are found are covered. So next slide. So again, this is our website. There's 2 places that you can report a potential loss to us. One is under Improving Government on our Preventing Fraud page, and the other is under Reporting a Concern. You can report a whistleblower, you can report a potential fraud or loss, or also a hotline there. The other thing too is if you're not really sure if you should be reporting a loss or you have a particular fraud or loss question, we can always get a hold of our program managers over our fraud investigations at fraud@sao.wa.gov. They're really timely and they'll make sure to get back to you really fast and potentially get you on a phone in a further conversation. Next slide. So unfortunately, bad things happen, and sometimes it happens directly with credit cards. There's two cases that I'm going to talk about today, and we'll see situations where maybe some of those best practices were not followed. In this particular case, this was a loss at Bellevue College. This covered a loss that started in January of 2017 and it went to June of 2022, so a pretty long time period. The college notified us of the loss in May of 2022, and we just released this report in April of this year. The investigation started because an employee had some concerns about the food service director's purchases, and also kind of reported it to HR as a possible ethics violation. So the college started an investigation about the concern and pulled credit card statements to review. And there was a lot of questionable purchases that didn't seem to have supporting documentation. So the food services director was called in for questioning and was unable to provide support for the expenditures because they were, of course, personal in nature. The other thing too, as Carol talked about earlier, the food service director was using the purchase card inappropriately and also his own travel card for personal gain. So both of them were misused. We saw personal purchases on the credit card. He also misused his travel card, which was supposed to be used for obviously college travel only. The college found he put personal travel on that card for him and his family for a vacation, which happened during a work week. And during that work week, additionally, he did not take leave. So there's a payroll issue there as well. He was the sole administrator of the college membership account to a grocery store supplier or vendor. You know, I had on the slide, it was Costco, but anyway, it got changed and adjusted. But basically, he had he was the only person who could use the Costco card that was issued to him for the college. One of the things that he did was he was basically buying large amounts, and that makes sense. He's food services. I'm sure he needed to go to Costco. That would make sense. But some of those big purchases were returned. And instead of that return going back onto the corporate credit card for the agency, those were going back either onto the travel card, which was in his name, or he was getting direct cash, or it was going on his personal credit card. So the way that was determined is Bellevue worked with Costco. I don't know, for those of you who have a Costco card, you can actually go and look and see exactly what purchases were made. So they got that support and really found the additional loss. So this misappropriation was $31,510 and a questionable amount of $12,093. The misappropriation amount, we can clearly verify that that person was benefiting. The questionable amount is where we weren't able to tell with some of the refund activity in the payroll, but we did question the payroll when he was on vacation. So what controls would have prevented this? Next slide. You want to make sure someone is doing a regular monthly review of all purchases and those travel cards, and someone who is independent of that activity. And supporting documentation should be maintained for all expenses and be available for review. And also, again, when we're looking at any returns, make sure that that also has supporting documentation as well. Next slide. All right. So this one we're going to go over real fast is for CUSIC. I want to make sure we have enough time. This is a situation where we had a really tiny town, the town of CUSIC. And this is a situation where you would think that if their credit card has a limit of $500, that would be the maximum amount that somebody could spend on that particular card. Well, as you can see in this situation, this individual stole a whole lot more money, and all of that was through unauthorized bank transfers to the credit card for over $242,000. So basically what this particular person was doing was paying a whole bunch of money to overpay that credit card. So there were times when this particular credit card had a overpayment amount up to $60,000. So that allowed your $500 credit limit card to have a balance that well exceeded that amount. And that's really how this loss happened. The other thing that this individual did is he started stealing from day one when he was hired. He had electronic disbursements, ACH transactions that went directly from the city to his account. He overpaid himself in payroll and cash receipting as well. So this was a really big one, and the same situation where nobody was looking at this individual who had total control. The total credit card misappropriation in this one was $199,000. And then in the total misappropriation was 277. So this is all available at on our website, and that was huge. So again, the controls, you always need to make sure that someone is reviewing those statements and also questioning any credits that you have on your credit card amounts. Like why would we be overpaying a credit card by $27,000? And you also need to ensure all credit card payments are allowed and adequately supported. In this case, there was nobody watching this clerk treasurer. Next slide. So this is the one I really wanted to make sure, and I don't want to run out of time, but I probably will. This is for the Office of Administrative Hearings. This is one of the biggest losses that we had this year. This was one that was found by us through our data analytics review. We have a data scientist who works for us, and one of the things that we did was we got all of the US bank data for state agencies. And so instead of doing an analytical review agency by agency, we did it for everybody and on a statewide basis. One of the things that we saw in some of the credit cards was something we call exponential growth. Exponential growth is a particular pattern that we see in many frauds. This is where someone's kind of testing the water to see if they're going to get caught. And then that fraud and that stealing starts to drastically increase and testing as it grows. So we basically told our data scientist, can you look for this? And he did. And there were 2 credit cards at the Office of Administrative Hearings that were showing that type of growth. So we started our audit in May of 2023, and we selected those credit cards. And then we met with the Office of Administrative Hearings and asked them about particular expenditures on those accounts. Some of the accounts and the vendors we picked, we hadn't heard of, and we also noticed that they were paid through Square. And we met with the former CFO and the former management analysis who oversaw monitoring the credit card expenditures. The management analyst was the person who was in charge of monitoring the credit cards for the agency. The CFO did not recognize the businesses and was unable to find supporting documentation for the charges, and that was very concerning. So then they contacted us, and she felt like there was a problem. So we worked closely with the Office of Administrative Hearings to dig into the vendors, and one of the vendors was registered on the Department of Revenue's website to the management analyst who was responsible for reconciling and overseeing all the credit cards at the agency. He also failed to show up for work once he knew what expenditures we wanted to pull, and the analyst resigned from employment a few weeks later. Again, the loss started small with personal purchases like gift cards and paying personal cell phone expenses, and then it really ramped up over 2020 and through 2023 when we started asking questions and he left work. The analyst's access to the accounting system allowed him to both upload and release batches in AFERS, and that was also allowed him to release additional payments to the credit card company, and nobody was looking. The analyst was the only one who had access to review the agency's credit card activity online at US Bank. And he also did not provide complete statements for review to his supervisor. He only presented expenditures that were work-related. And he also told the former CFO that he needed to pay the credit card multiple times a month because they were using it so often. But the CFO had full trust in the employee and didn't investigate the details. Just want to say to the Office of Administrative Hearings, they were very responsive and they helped to work through us. And since then, they've worked hard to put strong controls in place. But of course, we'll come back and visit those controls. But as you can see, this loss was pretty pretty huge. And there were 4 different fictitious vendors to end up with a loss of $878,000. So anyway, it's a big one. So again, we're going to just go back to, we need to make sure you're performing a secondary review over monthly reconciliations over credit cards. And we also need to make sure that the person who's responsible for that oversight is also being reviewed. And then segregation of duties for uploading and releasing batches is important. And ensuring that somebody who is actually looking and reviewing all of that activity. All right, I know we're slightly over time, but I just want to go to the next slide real fast. We have a lot of resources at our office. We have a huge resource library, and on that page, we have best practices for all of these various areas listed on the slide. Next slide. The one I particularly want to bring everyone's attention to is the best practices for the credit card program, which I'm going to drop into the chat right now. Again, this is just some ideas, things to think about in regards to what you should be doing when it comes to credit cards. And again, we have best practices for travel and fuel and a whole bunch of other things. So just make sure that you're coming to our website. We really want to do what we can to help you to stop fraud and put good controls in place. Next slide is just our contact information. And if there's any questions for us, we're more than willing to have more conversations.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Hope everybody had a chance to, refill their coffee, get something to eat, get comfortable. We have Monica and Shannon next. They're going to talk about kind of the financial health of the state as it relates to our P-card programs, and kind of give us some big picture overview of just how well we're doing. So thank you, Monica and Shannon. I will give you the floor.
Good morning, everyone. Can I, just like everyone else, I've had some audio issues this morning, so maybe thumbs up if you can hear me. Yep. Great, thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Once again, I'm super excited to join you this morning. This, by far, is one of my favorite forums. The state of Washington, you all do a fantastic job putting this together. So before I jump into this, I just want to thank the planning committee. Michael, I'm sure you're going to do that at the end, so I'm not trying to steal your thunder, but I just want to give a big shout out to the planning committee, but most importantly to you, Michael. You've done so much to put this forum together. I know we look forward to it all year. Getting presenters lined up, it's a big task, so thank you. And Michael, I know you introduced your role in the beginning of this session or of this forum, but I just need to let everyone know that, what the state of Washington has to have a resource like Michael is basically unheard of. So regardless of where you're at with your program, so if you're contemplating getting a card program started, or if you are a best-in-class program, I strongly encourage you to reach out to Michael because he has a wealth of knowledge. He's managed his own programs in the past, and he really is a great resource for you all. So sorry, Michael, I had to throw that in there. Okay, so for the next 20-ish minutes, Shannon and I, we're going to get into a couple of U.S. Bank highlights. We always like to let you know what's the latest and greatest, and then also just, take a look at the state of Washington's relationship, so how you all are doing from a spend and rebate perspective. Oh, really quick, before I forget, I wanted to go back to the prior session. I couldn't navigate the slides and type in the chat, but just in case all of you don't know, for any loss that you have within your organization, if it's caused by cardholder misuse, just remember that you have that Visa liability waiver. So you do have coverage, you do have a protection from a financial standpoint And if you ever need, not that we ever want to experience this, but it's important to know that if you ever do experience some type of card misuse, please reach out to us immediately, and we'll help you navigate that process, because Visa, once again, does have insurance that can help you make up some of those financial losses. Okay, so meet the team. We always like to let you know who is here to serve as your resources. So from a relationship management standpoint, I'm Monica Lockett. I serve as your dedicated relationship manager for some of you. So the state of Washington, you all are so large. I took inventory of the list of entities within the state, and there was about 600, and I believe it was like 662 entities, and that's including state agencies and local political subdivisions. So you all are very large. So throughout the state, we've basically broken down your state into two of us, once again, from a relationship management standpoint. So it's myself and Shannon, and what we're responsible for is anything related to your contract. So if you have questions related to your contract, to your rebates, and then most importantly and most fun, anything related to program growth. So if you want to take your program to that next level, or if you're needing guidance on, taking a look at your program, analyzing your program, we're those resources for you. We are also here for you for the life of your program. So we serve as that liaison as well. So if we need to bring in other bank partners, that's what we're here to help you with. Shannon, do you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you, Monica. I'm hoping you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Thanks. As Monica mentioned, we share your state. So I am also a relationship manager for the state's relationship. If you reach out to one of us and the other person handles it, don't worry. We'll make sure that you are in touch with the right contact you need. And again, I want to echo Monica's comments that this is a great presentation that we get to be a part of and collaborate with Michael and the planning team every year, and appreciate you guys allowing us to be a part of this annual event. Perfect. I also wanted to indicate the other departments that we support you, or that we have to support you. Besides Monica and I, we have our technical help desk, which helps with our Access Online platform. More technical assistance. You can't find a report. You need help navigating. You're locked out. That's our 24/7 availability team for those issues. Cardholder services is the number on the back of the card. So they primarily assist cardholders, but program administrators can reach out as well. And they can assist with things like card declines, anything like that you would need on the go, on the fly, 24 hours a day. You also have your operations account manager, which would be our client services team. And there would be your day-to-day program administrator support. This team is dedicated to you, whether you have an individual assigned to your organization, or if you have the client services public sector team, that would be a team of dedicated individuals that are assigned to our state of Washington clients. They'll assist you with operational inquiries, Access Online support, day-to-day administration, things like, we have cards for this division, but we want to add new cards for another division with another billing account. Or, my cardholder looks like they're going to get a new card, but they haven't received it. Can you tell us if that's on the way or if it's purged for non-use? All those kind of day in, day out support questions are handled by the client services team. We also have technical consultants, which assist us with more complicated or in-depth files and kind of data transmission needs as needed, fully free and available to you. Again, we have program optimization analysts, and we can talk a little bit more about this, but they will help you analyze opportunities, as well as Monica and I, we partner with them. And also a way to kind of take a look at your program's policies and how your program operates, and make suggestions based on those policies and what we see kind of in the industry, and benchmarks with other programs. Solutions engineers, they help us with things like APIs that Tracy discussed earlier, more kind of technical solutions. Those are our partners internally that we would bring in if we're having some of those technical questions, and working with you on things like single sign-on or APIs, as I mentioned. Relationship manager like Monica and I, we help with program overviews, any custom solutions you may need. We typically go over spend data analysis, and again, we can assist with credit line increases, things like new products and services that you may be interested in hearing more about. And then rounding out this graphic here, we have the training department. They can assist us with online training. This is the team that runs the Access Online instructor-led training webinars. And then they handle the user guides for us. And so they kind of work on that training aspect of Access Online.
And Shannon, I'm going to jump in here and just give a quick shout out to Gregory Reed, who is the dedicated account coordinator or account manager for some of you out there. So this goes back to that operations account management team that Shannon covered, but Greg is a dedicated resource to some of you as well.
Absolutely. All right. We just wanted to go over some fraud trends. We do have a fraud piece of the presentation today coming up, but we wanted to go over some things at a high level. A study conducted mentioned that payment fraud attempts on businesses grew by 71% in 2023. We all know that the world we live in today, it comes with some challenges, and we do take those very seriously, and we keep an eye on those trends day in and day out. A study also found that a staggering 96% of all US-based businesses were targeted by at least one fraud attempt in 2023, while 90% of these companies fell victim of at least one successful fraud attack. A lot of the ways that we're seeing fraud is through check payments and ACH payments. So we, Monica and I, have the ability to kind of work with you and discuss where there may be some opportunities to bring some of that spend into the digital card payment space, which has very little fraud. Fraudsters mainly use text messages and things like phishing emails. I think we've all seen those. Hacking and scams are a little bit less of a percentage, but they're using quite a few creative techniques to get to our information these days. Percent of fraud by payment method. I like the graph on the right-hand side of this slide. 65% of our fraud is coming across in check form. We're seeing a rise in the old check washing techniques. ACH and wire are still creeping up with 33 and 24% of fraud. Fortunately for Monica and I, the products that we're working with, virtual card has 3% fraud. It's very, very low. And one of the reasons that we see that low fraud is many of our virtual products involve a one-time use virtual card number. So it helps enhance the security around that program. Also, interest rates are at a 22-year high. The Federal Reserve has stated additional policy firming may be appropriate. And our program with the state of Washington. I live in Wisconsin, so that's why I'm mixing my W's. With the state of Washington does not have interest. So it's a great way to maximize some spend on hand by paying with a credit card. And again, Monica and I would be happy to discuss any of those options if you're interested in looking at that.
And just to jump in here, something that I wanted to share is that out of all these payment methods on the right-hand side, virtual card or your credit cards is the only payment solution that has that fraud protection. So when we started this session, I talked about the Visa liability waiver, which is basically think of it as some type of insurance if you were to have internal card misuse. But that's that. But in addition to that, you also have your regular just fraud protection. So if you have to file a fraud claim or if you have to file a dispute, that is an option that's really only offered with a card solution versus the other forms of payment.
All right. On the other slide with all of our contact information, I did briefly discuss our program optimization team, but I wanted to kind of go into a little bit more depth on what that team does, and Monica and I would be happy to engage one of that team members to go over your program if that's something you're interested in. This is an in-house U.S. Bank team dedicated to consultative client engagement. They can take a look at your internal policies and make recommendations. Of course, we understand that the state and individual entities have their own way of doing things, but this is a great idea for us to offer insight and information on industry benchmarking, program optimization, program utilization review, and then recommendations for supplier retention. So if that's something that you're interested in having our team look at, if you're saying, how does our program and how we run it compare to industry best practices, the team can help take a look at that and make recommendations based on their previous experience and their rich knowledge of the program market. Did you have anything to add to that, Monica?
Yeah, I was just thinking of this, and I tend to let my clients know, I would say across my client base specifically, I've noticed a lot of organizations going out and reaching out to different consulting firms. We all know how pricey these consulting firms can be. So my thoughts is, why not collaborate with the bank? This program optimization team, or these group of consultants, are built into the pricing that you all have negotiated in your contract. So it is completely free of charge. It's something that we offer, once again, based on the contract that you have. So why not take advantage of these free services?
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. And now pivoting a little, we wanted to just give you some bank industry updates, like what's going on in the industry, and then how U.S. Bank is keeping up with these trends and changes. So what we've noticed is that from a cardholder perspective, so commercial cardholders are wanting a lot of the same experiences that they're having with their personal cards. So they're wanting the ability to move that card into their mobile wallet. They're wanting the ability to use that contactless functionality, so that tap and go. They're wanting a lot of those same experiences. They're wanting to receive fraud alerts on their phones. Now, I do want to preface by saying I'm speaking generally. So if your state or your agency or your local entity does not approve that, please follow those guidelines. But for the most part, this is what our cardholders are wanting. And over on the right-hand side, you'll see how U.S. Bank has made basically updates, or continues to make updates to our systems in order to meet those requirements or those asks. So we've allowed the ability to have mobile payments. We have that contactless functionality with your cards. Another thing I wanted to to bring up is the automation. So we're noticing that a lot of entities right now are focused on updating their ERPs. They're doing a lot more with less, right? We know across the board we have less resources. There's been a lot of turnover, especially since the pandemic, I would say. So a lot of my clients these days are just looking at ways to create efficiencies and automate their processes. So with that, that all ties into the API integrations that we've talked about. So Tracy mentioned this earlier this morning, and if you haven't looked into it, it's something that I would encourage all of you to look into. These are ways, so these APIs that we've invested so much money into, these are ways to really reduce the amount of manual processes that you have to do. So we're happy to have more conversations about this at any point. Shannon, did you want to tap into maybe Travel Card and Instant Card?
Yeah. Travel Bank is one of our newer offerings. It came about a few years ago. It is an expense and travel management platform. So if any of you are familiar with maybe Concur or Workday or Chrome River, platform like those. So it's a fully involved expense and travel management system. US Bank liked the product so much that we now wholly own Travel Bank. And so if you're in the market for a expense or travel management platform, that's something that we can set up a demo and go over with for you. And Instant Card is one of our newer offerings that again came into large popularity during the pandemic. There's an increased rise in people working from home, not being able to be in the office to pass out physical cards, and also the need to maybe have individuals need a card for a specific event, for a specific training, especially if we're not in a shared office environment anymore. Instant Card allows you to instantly provision someone a plastic-less card to their mobile wallet. So again, we understand there may be restrictions around personal phone use or business phone use, but a solution that's been working very well for some of our higher education, clients that have teams that travel or infrequent travelers, allows you again to instantly provide a card to a mobile wallet to get someone a card quickly. And it's a card that lasts anywhere between 0 and 365 days. So meant to be a temporary use card. So if someone needs some card or purchasing solution that's longer than that, we would recommend you issue a standard card. But the Instant Card is a nice product for those solutions. Monica,
Thank you.
Yeah,
no, that's perfect. So now really quickly getting into just some of the highlights of your specific relationship. So here it's a visual of, it takes all under the state of Washington. So this includes the state agencies as well as the locals. So you'll see from a spend perspective, you're at $846 million. And this is once again over the past 12 months. During your last rebate period, you earned $13.3 million in rebate. So I'm sure most of you know this, but just in case you don't, all the spend that you have that you use on your card qualifies you for rebate. We have different rebate tiers. So once again, happy to have these conversations and show you what you can earn. But the nice thing about your cards, once again, is that your usage really does contribute back to rebate. And then another thing I want to highlight, this is the breakdown by product type. So for the state of Washington, most of you are using more heavily your purchasing card, which is really makes sense. Okay, so from a spend overview perspective, so year over year, you all have grown tremendously. As expected in 2020, we saw that dip in spend, But what we really want to focus on is the recovery, which we've seen for the state. I think based on my analysis, a lot of this spend increase. So just from look at the spike from 2022 to 2023, that's about $100 million growth, which is quite significant. I think a lot of this has to do with all of us coming back to the office and using our cards. I think some of it has to do with inflation, but going back to some of the stats that we've seen, we have seen a greater adoption of suppliers and different merchants being more accepting of cards overall. So the numbers show that. For 2024, this is just a representation. This is our estimate based on year-to-date spend, calendar year-to-date spend. So still, we're thinking that we're going to see about a $20 million increase from 2023 figures, which is quite remarkable. So kudos to the state of Washington. And then we always like to wrap it up by highlighting the top 20 entities throughout the state. This is from a spend perspective. And the goal here is for those of you that are maybe wanting to grow your programs, maybe wanting to kickstart your programs, take a look at this list and make note of some of the names on the list, because these are the entities throughout the state that have really adopted the card program, that are using it. For the most part, I would consider a lot of these a best-in-class organization from card usage perspective. So make note of these and give them a shout out if you can. And then lastly, to wrap us up, the messaging here from Shannon and I, and really from the U.S. Bank team, is, what can we do to help you meet your goals, right? Regardless of where you're at from your card usage perspective. So once again, if you're starting off, if you have an established program, if you want to grow it, if you want to focus on controls, fraud, or overall just like highlighting new products and services, automation, all these things, we're here to support you. Our job is to work with you and help you take your program once again to that next level. So please use us. And with that, that's the end of our session. I will hand it back off to Michael.
Thanks, Monica and Shannon. We appreciate that. Thank you for all of that good overview information. And I just want to add too, when you look at that rebate capture that goes along with our P-card usage, that's essentially cost recovery for our agencies in a lot of situations. And we don't always get to, as government employees, we don't always get to operate in an environment of cost recovery. So that's one really wonderful thing that our P-card programs can do for us. So I really appreciate having that feature available to us. Yes, I see the question here from Jana about auditing and reviewing documentation and tight turnarounds. I think that is excellent for a future forum. So I've already sort of noted that here with my little timestamp to find that and note that for the planning committee. So thank you for that. That's really good. Let's talk about fraud trends. We have Heidi Bursa here. They're going to talk to us about fraud trends from a U.S. Bank point of view. So I look forward to that. Heidi, you want to go ahead and begin?
Yeah, thank you. Monica, if we can go on to the next slide, please. So as you said, my name is Heidi Bursa, and I have been part of the fraud and dispute team within U.S. Bank for over 10 years. I'm really excited to share how we protect you and what to do in the event that an issue arises on one of your accounts. I do have a question I just want you to keep in the back of your mind, and then we'll answer it at, a couple slides down the road here. So the question is, who is most likely to fall victim to a fraud scam? Okay, and so we will go on to our agenda. So we are going to talk about what is the difference between fraud and disputes, current trends that we're seeing across the industry, how we fight fraud, and what to expect if you have to file a fraud or a dispute claim. And then finally, how you can assist us with keeping your account secure. So I don't know about you, but it seems like everywhere I turn, various scams and fraud just seems to be in the headlines. And you may have already experienced fraud yourself. So what is considered fraud? Fraud is any unauthorized transaction by an unknown third party. Generally, the fraudster's goal is to purchase items that they can then resell for cash. So now that we know what fraud is, what do we not consider to be fraud? If a friend or family member uses the card, when an employee uses their corporate card for personal purchases, as Monica said, this is not considered fraud at US Bank, but Visa and MasterCard both offer a liability insurance protection program, and Monica or Shannon would be able to assist you with that process should you find yourself in need. Billing errors, when those occur, that would not be considered fraud, but that falls into our dispute category, and we're going to briefly touch on that today as well. And then lastly, the inability to pay. So let's review several billing issues you may encounter on your credit card. Maybe you paid for your car rental and then they went ahead and charged you again. Or you placed an event, maybe for a catering event, and then the company went out of business and they won't issue you a refund. Or maybe you went out for a lunch today and your total was $25 and then they mistakenly charged you $250. That decimal point was moved. Or maybe you have a subscription to Forbes magazine and you canceled it, but yet they've charged you again. So those are all some samples of reasons to file a billing dispute. Visa does require that you reach out to that merchant to try and fix that issue. So if they refuse to give you a refund, or maybe they can no longer be contacted, just make note of those attempts that you made. Then next, you're going to go ahead and file a dispute claim. And this can be done either over the phone using the phone number listed on the back of your card, or through access online. And then just keep in mind that letters will be sent to the address on file regarding this claim. So please monitor your mail, as there might be various time limits that apply to certain information that is needed for your claim. So let's now review the fraud trends that are impacting our industry. Because technology is continually advancing, fraudsters are always looking for new methods to breach accounts. Card skimming is not listed here, as fraudsters have mostly moved away from that form of stealing credit card information, and they favor merchant compromises instead. A merchant compromise is when fraudsters can intercept that credit card information as it is being transmitted from the merchant to the bank. This form of fraud allows them to breach and steal information from that merchant's database. I do want to note that we do offer virtual cards and single-use accounts, which would eliminate the card skimming risk. However, the account number can still be at risk to merchant compromises and credit master runs, which we will talk about in just a minute here. Social engineering is also a favorite for fraudsters. Now, this includes a wide range of tactics, many I'm sure you've heard of already. So we have vishing, is when a fraudster is calling you and they're trying to trick you into giving away your personal information. We have phishing. This is when emails are sent to you to try and trick you into believing that they are from a reputable company and they need you to follow a link that is most likely going to contain malware to go ahead and try and clear up an issue. Smishing. Now, this is one of the newer forms of social engineering, and that comes in the form of a text message. So the goal is, again, to get you to click a link in the text message to resolve an issue. Then malware is sent to your mobile device and allows them to access your personal data. Then lastly, we have that credit master run. Now, this is a computer program that is used to create a list of credit or debit card numbers from one single account number. They use an algorithm of card associations, which then generate card numbers to make an online test authorization for $1. Now, if that test charge is approved, they will then continue to make larger dollar charges. So that question I'd asked you about, who is the most likely to fall victim to a fraud scam? Well, that would be people in the age range between 30 and 39, and then 60 and 69. So do you find yourself falling into one of those categories? Well, here are some examples of scams to help keep you and your wallet secure. It is more important than ever to be aware and diligent in your efforts to prevent fraud. The fraudsters are always looking for ways to take advantage of individuals and organizations. So the business email compromise scam involves a fraudster emailing a cardholder. They're going to impersonate a company executive requesting gift cards be purchased for an event or other purposes. Now, if the cardholder falls victim to this, the fraudster later follows up requesting that gift card information. Once they have that information, they are free to use those gift cards at will. Now, this might sound like an obvious scam, but we still see this happen every year. It's usually around the holidays, which are right around the corner. So just be mindful if you or your cardholders are contacted with such a request. Social media platforms, whether they are personal or professional, like LinkedIn, are another area where we all need to be vigilant. Everyone should be aware of unknown individuals contacting you via social media, requesting personal information, and then they're going to use that for fraudulent purposes. Now, again, fraudsters are also known to send those malware links via those social media messages. So we have some more scams here. So corporations are at risk for telemarketing scams. So a fraudster will call stating that they are seeking funds for a fake charity or following a natural disaster, such as we've seen with Hurricane Helene. But the funds are redirected to the fraudster instead of the victims of those natural disasters. So when choosing to support various charities or community events, please be sure to use the official website, not over the telephone from an unsolicited phone call or an email that may contain malware. Tech support scams are another area where fraudsters like to target. While most companies do have their own IT department, these callers try their best to sound legitimate. The goal is for the cardholder to provide personal information under the guise of receiving technical support. Now, if you are contacted regarding tech issues and you didn't initiate that, hang up or delete the email and then follow through it by contacting your own IT department. The triangulation scam is something newer that we are seeing pop up. A fraudster will go ahead and set up a fake online storefront. So they'll accept the payment, and then they even send you the item that you purchased so no red flags are raised on your end, and you're unaware your information has been stolen. Later, the fraudster uses that card information from that first purchase to make other unauthorized purchases. So at the top of the list is social engineering. These are becoming more common. The takeaway from these trends are if you didn't initiate that contact, do not respond and use another channel for confirmation, such as calling the number on the back of your credit card or going directly to your bank's official website. Multi-factor authentication is becoming more common across many of your personal accounts, and a fraudster will spam you with numerous MFA requests, hoping that they will tire you into approving that access. So if a fraudster calls you, they're usually forceful. They want to portray a sense of emergency. They're trying to catch you off guard and then scare you into providing information you normally would not give out. Again, if you have any doubts about who is calling you, hang up and call the number on the back of the card. Another telltale sign that there may be a bad actor on the phone is if there are long pauses between the questions they are asking. And this is because they are trying to locate that information in the background so that they can sound like a more legitimate caller to keep tricking you into giving them that information. So next we'll talk about account takeover. Now, this is a trend that has historically been impacting the consumer side, but it is now affecting commercial cards as well. Now, this happens when a fraudster is able to obtain both personal and credit card related information. Using this information, they impersonate the cardholder when calling into a financial institution. So once they have enough information, they try to do several things. They may order a replacement credit card and have it shipped to an alternate address. They may start making internet-based charges. They may call into the bank and remove a fraud block so that they can keep spending. Sometimes this information is even sold onto the dark web. Now, we do regularly search the dark web here at US Bank to ensure that our cardholders' information has not been sold. If we find it, we do proactively secure your account and provide you with a new one. So while this may be concerning, there are steps that you can take to help reduce the likelihood that this type of fraud will impact you or your cardholders. So for security reasons, ensure that the information on file with the bank is accurate and current, as this helps us properly verify the cardholder should they call in. Only publish documents to assist your cardholders with their accounts on secured websites. The fraudsters, they love to scour the internet looking for little breadcrumbs that they can piece together. Program administrators, you should be verifying your cardholders when they are requesting maintenance on their account, like increasing a credit limit, removing a fraud block, or maybe even placing an override on the account. We recommend that you confirm their identity through your organization's instant messaging tool or internal email. We have seen multiple examples of a fraudster calling that program administrator and were successful at making changes to an existing account. In that particular example, they were able to increase the credit limit. As a general rule of thumb, US Bank will not contact you to solely solicit personal information. So this could include your phone number, the address, the expiration date, the CVV code off of the back of the card, or even a one-time passcode. If you receive a call from someone claiming to be with US Bank and you have any doubts whatsoever about who they truly are, go ahead and hang up that phone call and then call the number on the back of your credit card to ensure that you are speaking with US Bank. So let's dig in and discuss the many ways US Bank defends against fraud. So first, we'll discuss our near-time and real-time strategies. So CardGuard is our near-time strategy. It focuses mainly on the lower risk fraud trends. Near time means that it will go ahead and approve that first attempt, but then will automatically place a block on the account in order to prevent further attempts. Now, this allows us to review and confirm the suspicious activity. We do this by reviewing your account for previous history. We look at if there's any notes that on your account that may indicate you are traveling or there is another unique circumstance that may apply to this transaction. If we cannot determine the validity, we will call you to confirm. We also offer fraud alerts, which provides real-time notification of risky activity, and we'll discuss that in detail shortly. Then we move on to our real-time strategies. Those are known as authorization decline strategy, or ADS for short. And these mainly focus on what we consider to be the high-risk trends, meaning we are almost completely certain that the attempts are fraudulent in nature. They are set up to decline that very first attempt at the point of sale, and an agent will place a call out to confirm this activity with you. Now, there are two levels of the ADS protection. The first level focuses on policy rules, such as does the name, the address, or the CVV code used for this purchase match what we have on file for you. The second level focuses on the dynamic rules for the current trends that we're seeing. So these rules, we adjust those on a regular basis as the fraud ebbs and flows. Now, because the ADS strategy declines that very first attempt, a fraud alert is not going to be sent out. Therefore, we do recommend setting up decline transaction alerts, and then this will notify you immediately of that decline charge. So as I said, fraud is fluid, and we are continually adjusting our strategies to stay ahead of the curve. You may be hearing about AI-related fraud in the news, and US Bank fights AI with AI. So this slide shows some of the tools that we do use. We also have a specialized phone detection system that we will talk about next. The fraud risk score models are a tool we use to further improve your cardholder's experience. The purpose of these models is to limit the number of legitimate declines while still detecting that fraudulent activity. The goal is to find a balance between fraud protection and reducing the interruption to your normal spending. So these work by using a consortium of data to determine what activity falls into that high-risk category for fraud, and then what would be considered a legitimate transaction. So each transaction is scored based on any number of criteria, such as the dollar amount, the location, the merchant name, or maybe even the merchant type, just to name a few of them. The scores range from 0 to 999, with the higher the score, the more indicative of fraud it is. So our foresight scoring model uses that AI to build spend patterns specific to each cardholder, which further reduces the unnecessary interruptions. So as you spend, Foresight learns your behavior and is able to zero in on fraud more precisely. So we do set certain thresholds within our strategies to queue or decline transactions based on a score. For example, we may decline a transaction that scores over 975, or we might combine that score with other criteria that will match a certain fraud trend that we are seeing to help protect that more effectively. So pin drop. Now this is a favorite fraud feature of mine at US Bank. The bank has implemented, it is a risk-based biometrics technology in our call centers. So in short, it analyzes inbound and outbound calls as well as our automated banking line known as the IVR. So the purpose that this technology is to help us better verify our callers and to more clearly identify known fraudsters who repeatedly call in. This software analyzes approximately 1,200 different factors related to each and every call. So based on that criteria, it will assign a risk score to each call for potential actions. If it is determined that a call is high risk, it will notify the call center agent in real time of that threat and allows them to stop the fraudster before any damage can be done. Now this tool, it also builds profiles for known fraudulent callers so that they can be easily identified if they continue to call in attempting to take over an account. So we have talked about how US Bank keeps you safe. Now let's discuss the tools we provide to you as an extra layer of security. And I know that Tracy talked about this at our very first session, but we will start with those email notifications. So these are generated when potential fraud is suspected on the account. It will provide the merchant name, the purchase amount, and date of the charge. You will then need to call the number provided in the email or on the back of your card to confirm the validity of that charge. You are not able to reply to the email. It is a one-way communication only. Text message alerts are highly recommended as they are a two-way communication. So the text alert provides the same information as the email alert, and you get the added convenience of texting back whether the charge is fraud or valid. Now, if it is valid, the fraud block will be lifted and you can continue with your purchase. However, if the charge is fraud, you will need to call the number using the number in the text message or on the back of your card. And the reason for this is our agents do need to gather some additional information from you in order to get your fraud claim started and get a new card sent out to you. So enrolling in fraud alerts can be done in two ways. Program administrators are able to upload a file in Access Online, and they can mass enroll all of their employees to receive those email alerts. Now, the text messages are a little different. Federal communication regulations do enforce that each cardholder has to enroll themselves in those alerts because they do need to give express consent to receive those text messages on their devices. Those cardholders can enroll themselves using Access Online or the Access Online mobile app. So Access Online has even more tools called event alerts. Now these monitor other activity to keep you informed and in charge of your account. So such as if your PIN number has been changed, if your card is set up for cash, has the purchase exceeded an amount? Maybe a purchase was made inside or outside of a specific state or country that you don't do business with. So there's just a whole variety of things that help put you in the driver's seat to keep you in charge of your account. So what happens when you need to file a dispute claim or there is fraud on your account? So as mentioned earlier, when fraud occurs on your account, the program administrator or the cardholder must call U.S. Bank to have a fraud case started. The account with the fraud is closed to secure it, and a new credit card is sent out. A fraud claim is then initiated and submitted into the fraud case system. Now, please note that cases are worked in the order that they were received, and as a general rule of thumb, new cases are worked within 10 business days. This allows for any straggling fraudulent charges to post to the account so that we can ensure to get them included into your fraud claim. Then a statement of fraud, or an SOF, is mailed to the address on file, and this will list all of the transactions that are currently included in your claim. Once it has been reviewed, it will need to be signed and returned. Now, if the cardholder is not available, the program administrator has the authority to review, sign, and return that document. A case processor is assigned to your claim, and they will issue credits to zero out those fraud charges. Now, fraudulent charges, they cannot be removed from the account. So instead, we issue credit to be matched with that fraud charge for your reconciliation purposes. The case processor then files your claim directly through Visa. And once the recovery process has finished, the bank mails out a final resolution letter, and this informs you of the conclusion and that the credits we issued earlier are permanent. So, as we mentioned earlier, a dispute claim can be filed over the phone or through Access Online. So a case is created based on the billing issue that you have run into and is assigned to a specialist known as a case processor. The case processor assembles the details of your billing claim. Now again, Visa and MasterCard, they have very specific information needed for each billing dispute. So you most likely will receive a letter in the mail or a phone call from your case processor requesting any missing details that are needed in order to complete that processing. Your claim then gets filed through Visa. And then, like I said, just be on the lookout for any additional mail requests that may be sent out, pardon me, for any additional information needed to conclude that claim. Okay, so we're going to finish up this session today with tips on how you can help us prevent fraud. So here are some best practice recommendations for the program administrators. While some of this might seem like common sense, we like to keep it at the top of mind as all of these steps can help prevent fraud on your program. So again, do not publish those program information help sheets on public or unprotected websites. Confirm that cardholder identity through your organization's instant messages or email prior to removing a fraud block or placing that ADS override. Go ahead and block those unused merchant category codes and then utilize the account controls such as single purchase limit, velocity limits, or even country code blocking. Keep records current and be mindful of how data is stored and destroyed. Manage charging privileges and then review that spending frequently. Go ahead and schedule fraud and transaction reports to better understand what is occurring within your program. It really just keeps you at the forefront. And then educate cardholders and communicate policies frequently. You know, if it's not at the top of our mind, we kind of forget about some of those details. And then be sure to report any unauthorized activity immediately. There are time limits that are involved in fraud and dispute claims. And then close accounts immediately if an employee leaves the organization. As I did mention on a previous slide, that program administrators have been targeted by AI. Fraudsters are using the AI to present themselves as an employee. So again, just use those internal messaging systems or the work email. And then I also wanted to point out that these fraudsters, they have the technology to spoof a telephone number. So you might have caller ID and it might show up as the number assigned to your employee, but it is not a guarantee that you are speaking with your employee. And then lastly, authentication equals security. So the easiest way to keep your account secure is to know the basic information linked to your account, such as the address, the phone number, credit limit, single purchase limit, your employee ID, and the program administrator's name. And I know that list seems long, but Once authentication has been fulfilled, the caller has the keys to the kingdom of that account. So our goal is to ensure that we are talking to you and not a fraudster. So fraudsters, they use many tactics to gain access to your account. This is done by scouring social media websites. They send emails, text messages, or they'll even call the cardholder or the program administrator directly. Then they use all these little pieces of information they have gathered and they start calling the bank to try and pass that authentication. They provide all those tidbits that they found, hoping that they will get access. And while our fraud protection system, such as PinDrop, does help catch many of those calls, we do need your help to keep your information up to date and secure. So when your verified cardholder calls in, they are able to make the maintenance needed. And then keep an eye on your account. Remember, as I mentioned earlier, there are time limits for filing fraud claims or those liability insurance claims that Visa offers you. So just keep up to date and be mindful of those timelines. Go ahead and set up those fraud and event alerts. They really help keep you in that driver's seat. Using our fraud prevention strategies and help from each of you to closely monitor those account activities. Together, we can greatly reduce that risk of fraud. And I do have some just some tips I wanted to share before we close out here. If you are traveling and you don't normally do so, especially if you're traveling internationally, go ahead and let your program administrator know. We can go ahead and submit a request to the bank here that we can place a special override for your upcoming travel. If you are going to be making unusual purchases for the upcoming holidays, maybe you're doing a retirement gift, or you just have a large amount of electronics that you're refreshing in your company, let that program administrator know. They can reach out to the bank contact. Jewelry stores, as mentioned earlier, they fall into those categories that just score really high with our fraud rules and most likely will be declined, even though it may be a legitimate charge. So the moral of the story that I wanted to leave you all with is that we all need to remain vigilant as fraudsters. They are coming at us from multiple angles, and they're trying to put the pieces of those puzzles together in order to cause harm. So with that is the end of our presentation. Was there any questions?
Yeah, Heidi, there are two questions maybe.
Okay.
There's one from Jacqueline, and this might be something that you may just need to take to this team and discuss. It says, when we call to lift fraud alerts because it's legitimate, sometimes the transaction will decline again. We then have to call and have an override placed on the vendor. Is there a way to streamline that process? It often takes 2 phone calls to your fraud customer service line, which is timely.
Oh, yes, so generally when you do get that fraud decline, our agents are trained to be able to read what sort of a decline that you're receiving. And in theory, they should be, once the block has been lifted, they should be proactively placing that ADS override on your account. So I do apologize, that's not the experiences that you've been having. So if you do run into that, would you just pass that along to your program administrator and then back to US Bank so that we can do some follow-up and some coaching on that, just to make sure that everybody is receiving the most streamlined experience with that. So I do apologize that you've struggled with that in the past.
Yeah, and to follow up from my point of view, I will discuss with Greg and Monica and Shannon about maybe some language we can use that might help us
yes,
get
definitely
through some of those hurdles. And then we have another question for the phone app for US Bank. How can we obtain access to it? Is there a template? So I will quickly say, as far as access goes, you'll want to speak with your internal IT and see if that's going to be available to you on your work phone. But Heidi, is there a template for a walkthrough, or is it just available in an app store kind of environment?
Yep, it should just be available in the App Store, and it should be pretty intuitive. And I think Monica and Shannon, I think they might even have or I know there is a picture out there of the exact app that you will want. So we should be able to help you get that set up too, if that is an approved function through your employer.
Okay, and then from Ashley, Ashley says, we place travel notes often. This is just an FYI. When they call in, representatives tell us we don't need to place travel alerts. Does that
So,
seem?
yeah, that's kind of a give and take. So a travel note will not reduce the chances of getting a decline on your account, but it does help if you do get a decline and one of our agents can go in and start looking at that behavior. They might be able to get that fraud block lifted before you even need to call in. So while it's not needed, it just helps us to determine, oh, yep, they are, maybe they're traveling in France this month, or it just helps us to monitor your activity and keep you more safe. But it is not required. It's just if you wish to have that placed on your account.
Thanks, Heidi. And then just real quick, I'll just say it because it's right here in front of me, and I would also like to mimic the statement from Jessica. Just great comprehensive presentation and what to look for in fraud. We appreciate that, Heidi.
Yeah, thank you. It was very exciting.
There's also a quick question here, maybe a statement. Let's see. When this person says, when I request P card for cardholders, they always ask me the activation code, and I don't have that code. So I always end up calling in as admin and activate it for them. And that's a pretty general, that's a pretty common occurrence in agencies.
Yeah, I would actually, what I was going to say is that kind of falls outside of my wheelhouse. I don't have any insight into the best practices for that. So sorry.
Yeah, I was going to sort of go along the lines of what Emily's talking about here. Typically, a lot of agency situations, the agency admins are the ones that sort of control the activation. That way they're aware of A, the card got to the card user or the card holder, and B, that it's ready to go and they can use it. There's just a little bit of an internal control methodology involved in that.
Hey, Michael,
this
is Shannon.
Oh, hey, Shannon.
Hey, I just wanted to chime in that usually when you're activating the card, it's going to ask you for the last 4 digits of the cardholder's social security number or their employee ID. When you issue a card, it does ask you for the social security number, although corporately billed accounts, it's not required. If you don't put anything in that field, the answer or the response when you're asked for that prompt will be all zeros. But if you do enter something in that field, whether it's a true social security number or it's the employee ID number, it'll be the last 4 digits of whatever number is in that field. Client services can also help locate that. It's in Access Online when you look at the cardholder profile, so they can help locate that too if there's a need to look that up. So just wanted to get that context.
Yeah, thanks, Shannon. And just to add, as you can see, there's lots of different ways to handle this type of environment. So I'd recommend check with your program administrator about this process and see how they would like you to handle it internally. And then, of course, if you are a program administrator and you don't have a process in place that you like or isn't working for you, please contact me and we can strategize some best practices on how to handle that for your specific use case scenario. Okay, I want to give everybody a break again. So it's 10:42. So again, let's take 8 minutes or so and take a break. When everybody comes back, we'll have the opportunity to hear from Visa on what things look like from a merchant processor point of view. And then, of course, that best practice section with our 3 colleagues from around the state. I look forward to that. So everybody go take a break and I'll see you in about 8 minutes. Okay, great. Welcome back from break, everybody. Next up, we have Kristen Bolden with Visa. And Kristen's going to talk to us about kind of the state of affairs from the merchant processor side. So Kristen, you should be available to present and unmute now. So please go right on ahead.
All right, thank you, and welcome everyone. Good morning to you. Can everyone see my screen? Is it good? Okay, I was just making sure. Okay, so my name is Kristen Bolden, and I am from Visa. Just a little bit about myself before we get started. I am the Director of Public Sector Sales, which we work on government-specific commercial cards. So whether it's a traditional purchasing card, a virtual card, travel, we work with different financial partners to issue those cards to government entities only. And just a little bit of background. So prior to coming to Visa, I used to run the commercial card program for the Commonwealth of Virginia for over 14 years. And so I have been on the other side of the table where you guys sit. So I think that that's the connection that I'm able to make with my clients, is that I've worked on that side of the table. So feel free to ask any questions that you may have in the chat. I'll be more than happy to address them.
Kristen, I think you're muted.
Sorry. All right. So why is Visa taking new programs to government programs to new heights? I think COVID changed our way of thinking about a lot of things. And so many times in the government space, things aren't necessarily done quickly. They're not that necessarily done efficiently. And sometimes we're lagging behind in the government space. But Visa focuses on providing a transitional payment strategy to governments in order to do their business so that they can process payments faster, receive payments faster, etc. So just a little bit of overview of how popular Visa is, or how many transactions that we process. So we process over 276 billion transactions, and that kind of equates to 757 million transactions per day. So the blink of an eye, we're processing all of those payments. They are equivalent to about $11.6 trillion in payment volume. So that's just to really give you an estimate of how Visa operates. We're located in over 200 plus countries and territories. All right, so just another look at Visa and how we operate. So the government team that I work with, we are comprised of 3 units that fall under the government space. So we have commercial card, we have our GSA, which is our federal smart pay program, which does the same thing that I do, but just on a federal level. And then you have the public sector side, which provides commercial card assistance to government entities, higher ed, local, state, and K through 12. We disperse payments. So when you think about stimulus payments, or you think about any kind of disaster payments, so just like the people that were affected by the hurricane in North Carolina and Florida, when those payments go out, they're more than likely to be sent via a Visa payment versus a traditional check or an ACH. So our commitment and how we work for you. And so this talks about our integrity and the trust that people have in us. We think globally, but we serve locally. So we're on the ground working when people need us and when governments need us to step in and, like I said, deliver those payments or deliver options. So, for instance, there's states who have emergency programs and they have to deploy emergency teams to go work on disasters. So I use the recent hurricanes as an example. So there are teams that are being dispersed to go and provide assistance, cleanup, food, shelter, etc. Just think of all of those things that are driven financially by Visa. So whether it's creating a one-time card to be sent so they can purchase food for someone or purchase lodging or secure lodging for someone, along with US Bank and Visa, that is how we make it happen. So that's just kind of giving you a general insight on how we work. So let's take a look at some economic outlook and payment trends that are kind of shaping our ecosystem right now. And so this is definitely just a look at the economic growth year over year. So I'm sure that you've been hearing these things talked about on the news, and inflation remains above 2% through 2024. And it's being said that the feds have begun to cut rates, and they have, and they will continue to cut rates through quarter three. Right. All right, so let's jump into some trends. So I heard someone talk earlier from US Bank, and they were talking about how we as travelers or in our business lives, we want our business lives to be as seamless as our personal lives. So when we think about how we travel, when we think about how we secure accommodations, etc., we want the ease of doing that on the business side as well. We want to act as the consumer as we travel for business. We want one point of contact. We don't want to have to search. We want to be able to use our phones and do business. And I realize that in the government space, that sometimes hinders us. So in today's business travelers expect a digital solution. So when you think about your travel plans and how you pull up your phone to check into your flight and how you board your flight with tapping your phone as your ticket, how you go in in the store in the airport before you board the plane to get your favorite snacks, whether that's gummy bears, a water, a soda. My personal favorite is grape Sour Patch Kids. That's like my thing for the plane rides. So we want that ease of being able to do so, and that is really what we're seeing as we move forward into travel. And we'll talk about how travel has changed COVID in a little bit. So I'm really interested to see how many guys allow the ability to use, if you have a work device, are you able to put your work card on your work device? So if you wouldn't mind kind of dropping that in the chat, if you can, I just wanted to really poll just to see if anyone is adopting that policy. And as we think about, how the world is changing, and we look at generational changes, Gen X and Gen Z, like they don't understand or know how to function like we function. They're thinking of, we tap a phone. I always give this example. My daughter asked for some money for some gas and some food, and so I reached in my wallet and I had cash. So I was like, I'll just give her the cash. And she's looking at me like, you gave me this in cash. Like, what am I supposed to do with it? And I'm like, you're supposed to, go in the store and pay for your gas. She was like, can you just put it in my account? Like, why are you doing this? Why are you making my life harder? So as we think about the generations that are behind us and the ones that are coming into the workforce, they are looking at a more automated process as far as work, as far as their personal lives. So at this point, it's really important for us to take a look at processes and procedures that we currently have in place. Are they in line with what's coming? Because if we don't make the adjustments, then that's when things happen. There's room for error, or there's fraud, or there's misuse, etc. All right, so right now, in 2024, business travel is expected to reach pre-pandemic levels. And so right now it's about at $1.8 trillion. But the interesting part of that is that the business travel has outpaced frequency due to inflation. So when we think about travel reaching pre-pandemic levels, has it really? It's probably half of the people traveling, but the amount of inflation that is being charged on airline tickets, on hotels, are like double. So people are traveling less, but they're spending just about the same. And that's kind of sad because, I think we all like to travel, but when you're paying $500 and $600 a night, possibly for a hotel or double that for a flight. So just to kind of give you something else, to think about. 89% automation of expense reporting and reconciliation is a big one also. And so, like I used before the example, when COVID happened, it caused us to really make some changes on how we process things. Just because people weren't in the office anymore, there was no one there to sign review off. So we had to adopt a more automated approach to doing that. So the automation of expense reporting became prevalent. Like we needed that in order to do our jobs. And it wasn't just the travel portion of it, but it could be anything. You were buying, supplies, etc. And you needed to be able to do that. Even equipment, when we moved our offices home, if there was something that you utilized in the office and now you need it in your house, you needed to make that purchase. All right, let's move on. All right, and so I know that all of you have heard the buzz of AI, and it's like the talk of the town, and it's going to continue to be the talk of the town. And it's not just in our personal lives, but it's beginning to seep into our work lives. Workplaces have implemented, Copilot software to assist us with summarizing meeting notes and writing emails and preparing documents, contracts, etc. So many companies have also adopted AI assistants to help with troubleshooting and customer service related issues. And that continues to grow because they want to pinpoint what is it that you really need help with? How can we solve your problems? And sometimes lack of staff or whatever the case may be, AI is a good filler for something like that. Now, of course, with any good comes bad, and there are some instances when AI has been turned into something negative. But in the workforce, I'm hoping that it will continue to bring benefit to us. And just to reflect on a few benefits of AI, and so it reduces cost. When you think about the number of employees in a customer service environment taking the same calls every day, answering the same questions, a lot of companies have implemented it an assistant. So they could have a name. It could be Tim, it could be Tom, it could be Sarah, to be your virtual assistant and to give you advice. Just now, I've had the same password on my iPhone, don't tell anybody, for 2 years since I worked at Visa. And yesterday I drew a complete and utter blank. Like I could not remember it. I'm like, what is happening to me? Like, becoming a seasoned person is a little challenging at times. So I couldn't remember it. But anyway, if anybody has ever locked themselves out of an iPhone, you know that sometimes it is very tricky to get back in. Typically, you have to contact Apple support. So long story short, Visa comes in like the great company that they are, and they had a virtual assistant that could help me, that sent me everything that I needed to get my phone reset, and I didn't have to call anybody. Like, it was great. And so I felt good about it. So just to give you an example of things that we're going to begin to see as we continue to grow in this world. AI, another benefit is more accuracy. When you look at human error, things of that nature, you really won't have that. Now, there are some inconsistencies sometimes with AI because if it doesn't know your trends or it doesn't know, the style of your writing, etc., you may have issues. But once it's up and running, it has the ability to really be a benefit to you. AI also solves more like complex problems, so that sometimes humans can't. So maybe you have a twofold question or a threefold question. Have you ever pulled up Google and you're like, I need this, this, and this, and it all comes up? Like, and AI has that ability as well. All right, let's move on. Right, I have like so many of these, so like I'm gonna kind of skip through a few of them. All right, so Klarna is one big one, and these are payment solutions that are really making their name known in the economy now. Klarna, buy now, pay later kind of thing. So they're expanding their AI into having like a personal shopping assistant, not only just providing the buy now, pay later function, but they're beginning to allow you to do more with that AI functionality by having someone to tell you what products they recommend for you or what things that you may like. Those are things that we are currently seeing in the world right now. Right. And so Stripe also is really going into digging into how AI can help them streamline their operations. And so for those of you that are not sure what Stripe is, it's a payment processing platform that allows businesses to accept payments online. So you think about as you log in to make a payment for anything, it could be a doctor bill, it could be an invoice that you got from somewhere else, like it's powered by a payment processor. So Stripe is going into AI to be able to obtain documentation, whether it's validating who you are or giving high quality data to identify and to be able to be more efficient. So those are things that a lot of other companies are going to begin to adopt as well as they continue to evolve in the payment processing world. And so another big one is fraud prevention. So we've talked about fraud on this meeting today and how fraud has, changed in the world. It's not going to end. Fraud has shifted from it's not really a lot of, I'm not going to say it's not a lot, but it's not as much check fraud anymore. It's not as much physical plastics, but our payment strategy has changed. So they're targeting different ways to attack us, whether it's through phishing emails or getting us to click on a link, etc. They're not stealing our virtual cards as much. We'll talk about that a little bit later down the line. But fraud prevention is also looking into how AI can benefit them through transaction monitoring and how they can speed it up. So the banks do a great job of looking, but it takes every card network, including Visa, MasterCard, and all banks that work together. This is probably the one thing that we all come together on, and that is fighting the fraudsters. And so when you think about it takes all of us to come together to be able to provide that type of transaction monitoring. It takes all of us to come together to provide solutions or to put in more fixes or whatever, more monitoring strategies. AI can be placed in these places to assist. So it's not like a lot of people trying to monitor, but the AI is picking up on the trends faster than a human could. All right. Give me 1 second. All right, so ecosystem security, we are seeing an uptick. So where are governments and corporations spending their money? The one area that, and I talked about this a second ago, that Visa works with and all the card networks and FIs is to fight against attacks. So governments, corporations, they've spent $10.5 trillion in global security expenditures. They're expected to grow to that number by 2025. And so that's more than triple in the last 10 years. And why do we think that is? That's because the crimes never stop. The cyber attacks never stop. When you think about big states that have recently been in the news, and I'm not going to expose them, but they have been in the news for ransomware because they got hacked. And typically they get hacked by an employee clicking on a link or providing information that they should not have. So with that said, you'll see a lot of companies beginning to do additional training, deploying new technologies in order to defend against attacks. This week, for example, at Visa, we have been getting these random emails. It's like every other day, and they're phishing emails. And you can tell sometimes we get them and we ignore them. Ignoring them is like worse than clicking in an essence, because that doesn't allow your government entity or your corporation to be able to stop the hack or to prevent it from going to someone else and they actually click the link. So just with all that being said, governments are implementing robust security measures, and that's crucial because they don't want to be hacked and they don't want to have to pay ransomware. And when you think about government, especially on the card side, and the amount of data that we have access to or that we have that someone can obtain, it's very scary. People's personal information, etc. So you'll begin to see an uptick and companies putting a lot more resources into protecting their entities or governments from cyber attacks. All right, so modernize infrastructure. 60% of government IT decision makers think that modernizing IT infrastructure is important. We talked about it a second ago, but cyber attacks, paying ransomware are clearly issues. And employees are clicking links. Companies are utilizing testing by sending emails. So we kind of covered that before, but I guess the bigger thing is 35 trillion has been spent on IT products and services, with 75% going to maintenance and operation of these IT systems. And so some of the benefits: cost savings, modernized applications, elevated productivity and improved security. Right, digital procurement. And so when we think about digital, what do we really think digital procurement is? I think of an easier way to pay. You could think of it as like e-payables, or what we call on the Visa side, virtual payables. It could be ghost cards. It could be any automated way of paying versus taking your card out. And I'm not saying stop taking your card out and tapping if you have to, but I'm just saying that digital procurement, going through an e-mall or some type of procurement database to purchase goods and services, that is on an uptick. And, I keep throwing the examples back to COVID, but it's the same scenario, where we had to reach out and buy things in different ways than we typically would, because we couldn't go into a brick and mortar location to purchase goods and services. All right, so I asked you this mobile wallet question earlier, but the shift to be able to use our mobile wallet to travel, using our mobile wallet to ticket, and we need to order an Uber while we're traveling. We could even order DoorDash if we are traveling and we don't want to go out to a restaurant. So just think about that, in that it's estimated that more than half of the world population will be using mobile wallets by 2025. All right, and I think this is the last slide. So this is really just to give you an idea of what we're seeing in the virtual card space. 1.2 trillion virtual card commercial payments or commercial cards are estimated. The spend is estimated to be 1.2 trillion by the end of 2027. And so a lot of this is because vendors and merchants want to receive their payments faster. The ease of paperwork, the ease of sending a transaction, the ease of employees processing payments, all of those things are factors when you're talking about using e-payables or using a virtual card. When we think about travel, and we think about sometimes someone may be checking into a hotel, oops, I had a problem with my card and it's not working, or my card got compromised while I'm traveling. What do I do? Like, I'm traveling for 4 more days. Am I going to have to come out of my pocket to pay for that, when it could easily be a solution where, hey, I call my bank, hey, I have an issue, they can shoot a virtual card to a mobile device. So that's just something to think about, and that's something that we are seeing a lot of. We're getting a lot of engagement on things like that, just an ease for everyone. And I feel like I've been talking really fast, so my apologies, but I'm going to open it for questions right now if anyone has anything in the chat.
Okay, great. I don't see any questions in the chat. So thank you for that, Kristen. That was really informative. It's good to see how Visa supports kind of what we do from the top down. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Welcome. This next segment is our best practices segment. The 3 individuals that are going to speak with you today from their points of view from their individual programs are what we call power users. They have a lot of experience doing this. And so what they say truly are best practices. It's not one of those things that we've recorded for a long time and we call it a best practice, but really it's just a generally occurring practice. These really are procedures that they use for their programs to succeed the way that they do. And so I'm really excited about this. The first person that's going to talk with us today is Lori Adams from Tacoma Public Schools. So Lori, I'll go ahead and let you take it from here.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Okay, hi everyone. And as Michael said, I'm going to be talking about a little bit about the P-Card training program we provide at Tacoma Public Schools. And training is critical to making your P-Card program successful with end users. Providing a variety of training options with continual training sessions allows everyone to gain the understanding and confidence with the program. Aligning this training with your best practices ensures a compliant program. Also, incorporating any feedback from previous P-Card program audits into your annual trainings keeps everyone up to date on current trends and helps to mitigate future compliance issues as well. Here are some of the different training methods that we provide to cardholders and reconcilers in the district. And next slide. New P-Card cardholders and reconcilers are provided one-on-one training either at their desk or in our purchasing office. And in addition, we provide Teams calls for training and to help with current issues with the process or to help walk them through reconciling for the first time. Having this real-time training gives the end user confidence and creates collaboration and trust between the purchasing department and the end user. And next slide. And the district has a professional development day every year for office professionals. We include purchasing sessions where we go over some of the following: the P-Card process, how to complete forms, best practices for P-Card usage, the reconciliation process, and emphasis on any changes or updates. End users are able to ask questions and get feedback immediately. And after we provide training for our new cardholders and reconcilers, we send a SurveyMonkey follow-up quiz to ensure they have a grasp of the process and can provide any opportunity for clarifications. We also will monitor the first couple of months of reconciliation for new reconcilers to ensure they understand the process. We like to be collaborative and work alongside our end users so they feel comfortable with the process and gain the understanding needed to be successful. When everyone is a team player, the program is very successful. And then my last slide. We also use a yearly quiz or survey to help determine what users may still be struggling with, such as the overall process, controls, reconciling, or anything else. We can then provide tailored training specifically to them or to the group. We use these trends to help to guide any changes to the P-Card manual that might be needed. And training isn't always scheduled. Daily ongoing support should be provided. Knowing that users have access to someone helps their confidence. Email, phone, and team support is provided for on-demand questions or issues. And we continually create updated resources, how-to guides, and one-pagers to assist with ongoing support. So all of these training methods and programs have helped us to cultivate a successful program at Tacoma Public Schools.
Thanks, Lori. That was excellent. It's really nice to see all the different ways in which your program, approaches training and refreshers and getting everybody involved and keeping everything front of mind with those procedures. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
thanks,
definitely.
Lori.
Thank you.
Don't see any questions for Lori. So if you think of any, feel free to drop them in there. But for right now, we'll move on to Julie. Julie is from King County. And Julie's going to talk to us about non-compliance for P-Card purchases.
Hello, with the last bit of morning here, I'll say good morning, everyone. My name is Julie Shin, and I'm the Payables Supervisor for King County. My payables team includes the traditional invoice processing, special district, special agency payments, traveler services, and our P-card program. Next slide, please. So who is our team? Here's a breakdown of my team and our contact information. If you have any additional questions after this presentation, especially on the topics I'm presenting today, please feel free to reach out. Next slide. So we started our non-compliance program in March of 2023. As you can see on the screen here, we had transactions that went back to 2020 that totaled over $818,000. In 2023, when the program started, we had over $547,000 that were over 45 days. Since we started the program, we are currently at only $182 of transactions that have not been expensed. Next, I'll go into what our non-compliance program entails. Next slide, please. So our non-compliance program here consists of the following. We send out weekly reminders to our P-card users based on how many days they're past the transaction post date. Reminders are sent to the P-card user with their unexpensed transactions that are 14 to 19 days old. And reminders are sent to the P-card user and their supervisors that have unexpensed transactions that are 40 to 45 days old. Now, non-compliance emails are sent to P-card users, their supervisor, and their P-card coordinators if they have unexpensed transactions that are 45 plus days old. This message that states that they will have until close of business to reconcile their transactions to approval status, or their P-card will be shut off. Currently, this is a manual email sent by my team. We are investigating ways to automate this within our current systems. Next slide. So the carrot we have here is the weekly email reminders that are sent out, not only reminding people to reconcile, but also gives people the opportunity to ask questions. This gives us a chance to further educate them on their responsibility to own the expensing of their transaction through paid status. This does include managing up to their approvers. As we all know, this does take a bit of time. Additionally, we can refresh their learnings from training on the various methods to research their transactions. Next slide. Unfortunately, we do have P-card holders that are not using their reminders to trigger expensing their transactions timely. So therefore, we have the following consequences for transactions that are not expensed within 45 days. Once a P-card user goes into 40-day non-compliance, for the first-time offender, their P-card is turned off. The P-card user will need to retake our monthly live P-card training. Additionally, their card will not be turned back on until all their transactions are in paid status. For second-time offenders, and we do have these, their P-card is turned off. The P-card user will need to write a letter to the Chief Procurement Officer explaining what steps they've taken to ensure this will not happen again in the future. And again, their card will not be turned back on until all of their transactions are in paid status. And lastly, and yes, we do have these third-time offenders, they will meet with the Chief Procurement Officer and Supervisor to explain why privileges should be restored and what steps have been put in place to keep this from happening again. As previously stated, this program has been highly successful. We have gone from 4 years of unprocessed transactions down to 2 months. Thank you.
Wow. Thanks, Julie. Incredible mic drop there at the end. Did you say you went from 4 years to 2 months?
Yes, and yeah, in our slide
transactions?
that we presented, we're actually even less than that now, currently, to date.
Yeah, that's really good. And yes, you're seeing comments now here from Emily, and I assume several more about reaching out to you to talk about how you achieve that. Thank you, Julie. That was really informative. And a couple of the themes you've already seen now from both Lori and Julie is just really proactive administrators, really engaged administrators, coming up with lots of different ways to engage the card users and the individuals who reconcile. And it's just not a coincidence that you have such large and productive programs with those type of measures in place. So thank you. Lastly, but of course not least, we're going to hear from Lance from LNI. Lance has been around for a while and has lots of good knowledge and information for us. So I look forward to Lance closing this out. This is going to be excellent information from Lance. Go ahead and
Thanks,
take it from
Michael.
here, Lance.
All right, thanks, Michael. I'm Lance Yawnett. I'm with the Department of Labor and Industries. I'm a contrast consultant, and I'm also the purchasing card program administrator and manager. So I'm just going to go through some of the steps and processes that we require for purchasers in our agency to check out the credit card to go make a purchase. So next slide, please. So the first thing is the training requirements. We require our purchasers to take the same type of training as our cardholders and approvers. So they have to take the Washington State Purchasing, Procurement Ethics, and Small Purchases, and then LNI. We have our own custom-built e-learning module that we put together that they also have to complete. And then they're able to access all these trainings in the Learning Center. Next slide, please. As a purchaser, you're required to fill out this form. It's called the Request to Buy a Purchase Card form. And what this is basically is it allows the cardholder to monitor what type of purchase is going to be made so that they make sure that the purchaser is going to be in compliance, especially if it's a non-contract contract spend. And also this form identifies what POSCO they'll be applying it to, and that they have their supervisor's approval to go ahead and make this purchase. And once the cardholder receives this form, then the purchaser is able to check the card out and go make their purchase. Slide, please. The document retention that we require for purchases is the approval that you can make the purchase, whether that's from supervisor or even higher authority. They have to make sure they retain the proof of receipt and any other related financial transactions that need to be maintained by the cardholder. It's a requirement for us. The retention is scheduled to 6 years for that. So part of the document retention, the purchase approval documents, whether it's an email or we require specific agency forms, for instance, meals with meetings, or anytime we have recognition events and awards, and even we do IT, we have specific forms that have to be filled out for that to make sure there's pre-approval and that even certain level of management has to sign certain parts of these documents. And then again, we require that they retain the proof of receipt, the sales receipt, any packing slips or shipping labels. Sometimes it's easier for the purchaser to just take a picture of the item that they proof of that they did receive it. And then during COVID, we implemented a requirement that all the cardholders need to start saving their documentation electronically. And where to do that, we direct them to save those on their program share drive. And this allows their supervisors to obtain those documents if ever needed due to the cardholder taking a new position or leaving that position. So we have had one instance many years ago where the cardholder for some reason was retaining the documentation on her personal drive or her P drive. And at LNI, those P drives are deleted, I think 60 days after separation of duties. So all that documentation was lost. So once we were able to identify that, we had to make some changes, which worked out really well for us. And we, suggest using certain types of naming conventions to have some type of standardization recommend that we that they sort of the folders by fiscal year and then vendor name, and then include in the sub folder vendor name, date, and dollar amount, so that it makes it easier for them to retrieve during an audit. Okay, that's it for me. So if anybody has any questions. All right, well, thank you.
Thanks, Lance. I see there's a few questions still coming in for Julie. Julie seems to be answering them in real time. And then if there's anything for Lance, this is a good time to put that. Thanks, Lance. That was super informative. Once again, it's just a very well-run program that's incredibly thorough with its processes. So that's a great reoccurring theme here. It's just about continuing to be consistent and just very present as a program. Lance, there's a question here for you. Do your cardholders scan them in the system one by one? Or is that another department?
Yeah, well, all of our forms are fillable. So they're available on our agency's internet site so that they're able to save those as PDFs in their documentation. When it comes to like shipping labels or packing slips, a lot of times they'll just take a picture and then save that as a file. They don't, since most of us are not in the office, there really is no scanning opportunities available. And again, most electronic receipts are by email. So it's pretty much easy to retain these days all the documentation electronically without having to physically scan.
Great, thanks, Lance.
Yeah.
Any more questions for Lance or the other two folks, policies and procedures wise? Okay. There's Lance's contact information there on the screen there a second ago if you need it. If you have any questions that come up afterwards. Oh, and then there are some coming in here, Lance. We have a few more minutes, so if you'd like, Lance, I can. Do you require original receipts, Lance?
Well, as far as electronic, there's really, that is original email. And if there's a PDF attached to that too, then, but yeah, if we can obtain the original receipt, especially if a purchaser is going physically out to buy something, then yes, they have to have the original receipt, and that has to be turned over to the cardholder because they're the ones who are required to retain the documentation.
Yeah. Looks like there's an additional.
I think what's helped us over the years is that with our internal audit, and then we've had our program gets audited at least, it seems like it's been annually lately. It's just been a growing process. I mean, we've been able to, fill the gaps of not only education, but documentation, retention, and what to retain, and make sure that we try to do that in the same order during the review process that I do monthly that is in line with our internal audit and how they do the process, and even SAO as well. So that when it comes time for them to go out and actually meet with our cardholders and require that type of documentation, they're already used to doing it. Because they have to do it like once a year. So I do a review on our accounts monthly, and I usually get through all of our accounts within a year, so that our cardholders are very familiar with the process, so they're not taken off guard when SAO or internal audit comes in and does their process.
That's a great tip, Lance. If your agency has the ability to, or if your card program has the ability to align your audit practices internally with your agency's audit practices, and then if in turn your agency's audit practices are also in line with what SAO requires, then you're just really setting yourself up for success, and there won't be any surprises in process or in outcome. There's a little bit of group conversation about providing detailed receipts, transactions, all that fun stuff. So feel free to check that out, everybody. That feature Tara's talking about, does anyone use the US Bank feature to upload receipts to transactions? That is available to everybody. If you're not using it and you would like to use it, please reach out to me or your relationship manager, either Monica or Shannon, and they can help talk to you about how to use that feature. But it is available to us on our contract. So it is available to everybody that's using the statewide contract. Of course, there is, keep in mind the change management aspect of all of that internally with your agencies, but as you can imagine, there's going to be some growing pains, but then also some alleviation. Sadie, will it follow the retention schedules required by the state? I'm to add, from my point of view, the recommendations that I give people are to still maintain what they're considering physical copies of documents for the recommended time that the state auditors or the Secretary of State's office has recommended. It's either 6 years or 7 years, depending on your type of document. And I typically recommend they still maintain that somewhere else, and then they use the document retention feature that US Bank's reconciliation portal offers as a way to create workflow for the reconciliation process. Does that make sense? There we go. Carol just provided a link to some good information. And yes, the deck from today will be made available. I will send it out to all attendees in a Gov delivery message. Sorry, that's what I was trying to say. A Gov delivery message that will go out to all of you. It'll also be available on the P-card webpage for the state. And then, of course, it'll also show up in the next newsletter. So look for all that. I'm going to put the survey in the chat here that I talked about. It's just a couple questions. Again, thank you all for being here. We really appreciate your time. To mirror what Monica said earlier, thank you so much to our planning committee and our advisory group. This really only happens because of their dedicated efforts to help this happen. So it's a lot of people involved in getting this going in the right direction so we can put on this event for you every year. And please take the survey. That helps us kind of direct and inform how we do this event every year. So thank you for that. Again, the survey will also be available with that, with the slides when they go out. So feel free to either take it now, or if you need more time with it, you can take it when you receive the slides. So again, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. I'll stick around for a little while longer in case there's any questions that come up. But otherwise, we're done with our content for the day, and I thank you all for your time.